Alliance head. Upon seeing that figure, the Tiandao Sect's experts cried out excitedly. That woman was Chu Jianying. Chu Jianying was standing in the sky, looking coldly at the experts surrounding the Tiandao Sect. I, Chu Jianying, have not yet died, and you are not able to threaten the Tiandao Sect. If you really feel so bored, then I don't mind immediately activating the martial heaven order so we can have a decisive fight. What do you say? Chu Jianying's expression was dark, and she was overflowing with killing intent. Her words conveyed her fury. This time, Long Chen had taken first place on the Devil Slaughter rankings. That had greatly excited Chu Jianying. The glory that the Martial Heaven Alliance had not dared to hope for had become reality under her command. She had just been preparing to gather the entire Martial Heaven Alliance and have a celebration, taking advantage of this opportunity to raise the Alliance's morale and unity. Hopefully, that would eliminate all the unsavory rumors. However, she quickly received word that the Tiandao Sect had been surrounded. Long Chen had only just taken first place when Pill Valley, the Ancient Races, the Xian Beasts, the Ancient Family Alliance, and many other powers had gone to the Tiandao Sect, saying that they would destroy it. How could Chu Jianying not be infuriated? She had been preparing for a celebration, so if Long Chen was killed by them, it would be a clear slap in her face. Even in the face of the likes of Yue Xihan, Di Long, and the other experts, she could not contain her fury despite her best efforts. All those familiar with Chu Jianying knew that she was prepared to launch a war. Hearing her mention the Martial Heaven Order, Yue Xihan, Di Long, and the others' expressions changed. The Martial Heaven Order was the highest order of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Once activated, all sects belonging to the Martial Heaven Alliance had to instantly gather for a life-and-death battle. It was an order to be used only when a great calamity was about to befall the Martial Heaven continent. Chu Jianying, I don't believe you would dare to do so. You know the consequences of activating the Martial Heaven Order, shouted Yue Xihan. There are many things that you don't believe. Although the Martial Heaven Order is for fighting off invaders from other worlds, I can still activate it if others want to bully the Martial Heaven Alliance. Having repeatedly accommodated you, it seems you think yourselves invincible. Since you aren't afraid, why should I be? It just means we have to fight until one side dies. Rather than thinking of how to fight off the invaders, you lot spend all day scheming against us, the ones who should be united. If you're just going to weaken us anyway, then we might as well settle things now. Let's see who lasts longer. Chu Jianying's voice was frosty. No one doubted her determination. Boom. Suddenly, an explosive sound rang out, and the Xian Beast expert was forced back by the Xiantian Tower. The divine light filling the air retracted, and the Xiantian Tower returned to its original state. Li Tianxian and the Patriarch stood beside Chu Jianying, coldly staring at Di Long and the others. Chu Jianying had clearly come to intimidate them. Long Chen ran over to Wild. Wild's body shrank until he was around 3 meters tall. Wild. Long Chen was both delighted and surprised to see Wild. He had unexpectedly woken at such a time. Brother Long, how long have I been sleeping? I feel so hungry, like my stomach is burning. It feels a bit better after I got that snack. What are these things on my head? Wild was still as simple and straightforward as before. He touched the horns on his head with a confused expression. It's nothing. In a bit, your brother Long will bring you hunting. Just try to endure the hunger for now. Long Chen patted Wild on the shoulder with a smile. When his hand touched Wild's shoulder, Long Chen was shocked to find that Wild's skin was like a dragon's hide. It was incomparably tough. Every inch of him was filled with explosive power. The current Wild was like a volcano that could explode at any moment and destroy the world. All right, I'll listen to Big Brother Long. That fellow's meat tastes very good. Wild pointed toward the distant Xian Beast expert. He involuntarily gulped down a mouthful of saliva. Long Chen was speechless. He understood that Wild lived for meat. The stronger the flesh, the more delicious it would taste. I loathe this bastard's race. Suddenly, Evelmun's voice rang out in Long Chen's head. What? I'll warn you that this foolish brother of yours will eat anything. He will bring you countless enemies in the future, so don't blame me for not warning you. Long Chen was dumbfounded for a moment. He suddenly said, "Does his race eat your kind as well?" Evil Moon snorted and didn't reply. Long Chen jumped in shock. Just what kind of race was wild to be able to even consume dragons? However, upon thinking about Wild's brain, if he was hungry, then he would eat anything with meat on it. He wouldn't care what race it was. Gu Yang and the others had been shocked to see Wild's new appearance, but seeing that he was the same person as before, they relaxed and went over to greet him. "Chu Jianying, do you really want to stubbornly cling to the wrong side all alone? Aren't you throwing the world's peace into danger?" demanded Di Long. "The world's peace? Why does that sound like such a joke when coming out of your mouth? When have you, Di Long, cared about the world's peace? So many disciples sacrificed their lives to stop the devil creatures from charging out of the devil abyss. They fought for the martial heaven continent. But you have decided to bring an army to destroy the Xian Tiandao sect. Is this your so-called world peace?" sneered Chu Jianying. "We have our reasons," raged Di Long. "What reasons?" asked Chu Jianying contemptuously. "Long Chen colluded with the original devil race. People have already released the proof." Di Long swung his arm, activating a photographic jade. An image of the Dragonblood Legion fighting the devil army appeared. In it, a veiled woman was floating in the sky. There was a clear devil character on her forehead, and it was shining brightly. This was the scene of Yue Xihan helping Long Chen to destroy the devil army. Don't tell me that you don't recognize the original devil race's innate divine ability. That woman is clearly one of Long Chen's allies. On the martial heaven continent, colluding with the original devil race is punished with the death penalty. We are fighting for the continent's peace. Is there a problem with us coming to investigate this matter? Demanded Di Long. The image in the sky caused all the experts' expressions to change. The original devil race was forbidden on the martial heaven continent. Rumor was that they were true fiends intent on destroying the martial heaven continent and enslaving everyone. It was said that the dark eras had been caused by them. The original devil race was the entire continent's enemy. Any person, any power found to be colluding with them would be killed. Furthermore, the original devil race's experts were very easy to recognize. When they were using their full power, a devil character would appear on their foreheads. This was conclusive proof. If Long Chen had really colluded with the original devil race, he would be doomed. If the Xian Tiandao sect tried to protect him, the Xian Tiandao sect would also become the martial heaven continent's enemy. Chu Jianying's expression also changed. Clearly, the news she had received was limited to Long Chen getting first place. She hadn't been told the process. Suddenly, the sound of someone clapping rang out. Long Chen slowly walked over with a disdainful smile as he looked at the fierce Di Long. "I'm admiring you more and more. It's no wonder slapping you hurt my hands so much. Your sin is truly thick. Tell me, who gave you that photographic jade? Do you dare to tell me? You want to silence the witness? Do you think I'd fall for that? No one can protect you, so don't even bother," sneered Di Long. Long Chen's smile grew. "I knew that you were a coward. Even after I slapped your clone, killed it, and then slapped your true body, you still don't dare to kill me. I sympathize with you. For the ancient family alliance's leader to reach this point, it's probably something unprecedented in all of history and impossible for any future generations to surpass. Long Chen, don't try to change the subject. The question is, why did you collude with that woman from the original devil race, and what is your relationship with her? Don't you think you should own up to your sins by now?" Yue Xihan suddenly interjected. "Valley Master, you shouldn't randomly say things, nor should you randomly accuse others. Where did you see me collude with that woman?" asked Long Chen innocently. "You greeted that woman and then immediately shut your mouth. Do you think we didn't see it?" You shouted Xiao, clearly greeting her. "Is this really the point that you want to argue?" sneered Yue Xihan. "Valley Master, it seems you've been in seclusion for so long. You've already forgotten how to act like a human and instead think everyone's a beast. It seems you've forgotten your roots." Long Chen intentionally glanced at the Xian beast experts and the ancient race experts. The meaning behind that glance could not be clearer. The Xian beast and ancient race experts were infuriated. This was a clear insult. Before they could say anything, Long Chen continued, "Just because I said Xiao, it means I know her and colluded with her? What a huge joke. I was calling her young lady. What's wrong with that? Valley Master, if I call you junior brother, does that mean we're colluding? Leader of the ancient races, if I call you a little idiot, giant fool of the Xian beasts, if I call you a damn brat, Long, if I call you a piece of trash, would that mean that we are colluding? Since we're all colluding according to your logic, why did you bring so many people to destroy my Tiandao sect? Are your heads filled with crap?" Long Chen pointed at all of them, cursing them loudly. His voice grew louder and louder, his spittle flying through the air. The Xiao in Yue Xihan is, meaning small. All the following names he gave the leaders in this paragraph included the Xiao character. Long Chen pointed at the opposing experts, cursing them on the nose arrogantly. These people were all supreme experts, people who could stand amongst the likes of Pill Valley's master, the head of the ancient family alliance, etc. They were all figures that could shake the martial heaven continent. The Tiandao sect's disciples were stunned to see Long Chen cursing these experts so directly, yet they also had worship in their eyes when they looked at him. Who else in this world was as domineering as Long Chen? A soul transformation disciple cursed Nether Passage experts into bastards. If news of this were to spread, it would shake the entire world. Long Chen, watch your words. Chu Jianying jumped in shock at Long Chen's cursing. If these people were fully angered and went crazy, she wouldn't necessarily be able to protect him. "Oh, sorry, my sincere apologies. I was just making a comparison. Hee, if I angered anyone, I'm truly sorry." Although Long Chen was apologizing, that arrogant laughter of his didn't contain the slightest apologetic tone. "You're clearly twisting logic to cover up your collusion with the original devil race." Long was red with fury. He pointed at Long Chen angrily. "Am I the one trying to cover up the truth, or are you the one trying to frame me? How did saying a standard greeting become collusion? In fact, I didn't even give a full greeting, and that is still considered collusion by you? Now who's the one twisting logic? If you wanted to, you could directly say that since I looked at her, we must be colluding. That glance must have been a case of love at first sight." Long Chen continued to spout nonsense. He naturally wouldn't admit to such a thing. Now he knew why Yue Xihan hadn't let him speak to her, and why she had vanished after helping with one attack. She must have noticed the people hidden in the surroundings. What nonsense! If you had no relationship with her, why would she help you out? Demanded Long, "Are you an idiot? Why would you ask me that? How am I supposed to know why she would help me?" Long Chen looked at Long contemptuously. Chu Jianying was standing beside him. Even with this many Nether Passage experts at such a close distance, Long Chen truly didn't have anything to fear with Chu Jianying, the Patriarch, and the Xiantian Tower as his shield. "I think I might know." Suddenly, a voice that startled everyone rang out. Guoran walked forward apologetically. "I'm sorry, boss, I'm a righteous man, and there are some things that I just can't keep quiet. My apologies." The Tiandao sect's disciples were greatly shocked. Was Guoran planning on becoming a turncoat? Only the Dragonblood warriors looked at him oddly, not quite sure what he was thinking. Long and the others smiled delightedly, thinking Guoran had been bought by one of them and was coming forward to testify against Long Chen. "What do you know? As long as you tell us, no one would dare to hurt you," said Long. Guoran nodded. "In truth, when it comes to this matter, you've overlooked one detail." "What detail?" asked Long. "The detail that the veiled woman was a female," said Guoran confidently as if it were some secret. Long and the others' expressions sank. Who was this idiot? Anyone with eyes could tell that it had been a woman. That was his so-called detail? "So what?" demanded an ancient race elder. It seemed the others no longer wished to speak with this fellow, so he could only thicken his face. "Do you not know? My boss Long Chen is a handsome man, of great suave and style. He is a genius of literature, culture, and martial power. Rumor is that he began practicing literature at 3, training in martial arts at 4, mastering the arts of poetry and song at 5, slaughtering chickens at 6, slaying dragons at 7. Hold it, what is the point of all of this? Someone finally interrupted Guoran, feeling like they had gone off track. What I'm saying is that this woman must have been affected by my boss's great charisma, which is why she suddenly helped him. Perhaps the rest of you might still be mystified by this, but a wise man like myself saw through this detail from the start. Scram! Di Long finally couldn't bear it anymore. A powerful sound wave surged toward Guoran. Boom! Guoran was sent flying, blood pouring from his nose, eyes, and ears. Di Long had attacked so suddenly that despite the Xiantian Tower summoning a golden barrier that blocked most of his power, Guoran was still coughing up blood. Fuck off, do you think my brother is someone you can touch? Di Long had yet to shut his mouth after his roar when Long Chen appeared in front of him like a phantom, slapping him once more. He was as quick as lightning and borrowed the counterforce to return to his original location. People had barely seen him move before it was all over. The fact that Di Long would attack Guoran was already out of everyone's expectations, but Long Chen's attack was even more surprising. Di Long's sneak attacked Guoran, and Long Chen's sneak attacked Di Long. Guoran was bleeding from his 7 orifices, while Di Long had been slapped. Both sides had odd expressions. Boss, well struck. Beat that bastard. I was just testifying my view based on facts and reason, and he suddenly sneak attacked me. Di Long, you're fucking garbage. Guoran pointed at Di Long furiously as he cursed. Guoran hadn't expected Di Long to suddenly attack. Without the Xiantian Tower's protection, he'd have been killed just now. Although there was no danger to his life, his head felt like it was splitting, and his Yuan spirit was injured. Originally, this was just a chance for him to show off and liven up the atmosphere, but he had almost lost his life. How could he not be infuriated? However, Long Chen was really interesting. His vicious slap of Di Long's face could count as compensation. At the very least, this now served as a warning to Guoran. If he wanted to show off, there was danger involved. Bastard! Di Long was knocked several meters back. This time, Long Chen hadn't had his divine ring or battle armor, which limited his slap's power. It wasn't even enough to injure Di Long. However, compared to the pain of the flesh, the pain of the mind was much worse. Just how many times had Long Chen slapped Di Long now? It was like he was beating a child who wasn't listening. The experts were all stunned each time Di Long was struck by Long Chen's slap. When he saw their curious gazes, Di Long felt like killing himself. Adding on Long Chen's words, he went berserk and was about to charge out. However, he was held back by Yue Xihan. Yue Xihan looked at Long Chen coldly. No matter how you quibble, it doesn't change the fact that you colluded with the original devil race. How laughable. Your Pill Valley really likes to interject itself into everything, huh? Do you think you're the bailiffs of this world? Let me use a phrase that you like to use so often. All things require proof. If you want to say I committed a crime, you have to bring out real proof, or you're just farting into the air. A recording of me saying half a greeting is not enough to say I colluded with the original devil race. Valley Master, I originally thought you had some intelligence, but it seems you're only SOSO. Next time you want to frame someone, make sure to gather more proof, or this kind of game will only end up with you embarrassing yourself. Other than that, please tell those idiots from Heavenly Fate Island that the calculations of man cannot surpass the calculations of the heavens. No matter how refined a scheme is, it will always have some hole. Tell them to be careful. Because once I grasp that hole, I'll become a wild dog biting their throats until they die. Looking at the surrounding experts, Long Chen continued, there's no point in continuing this. If the Alliance head wasn't present, perhaps you could have obtained your goal, killing me with some random grand excuse and then slandering my corpse while covering up your crimes. However, you missed your best chance to eliminate me. Furthermore, this time, I can clearly see your determination to eradicate me. That's very good, it means none of us will need to keep acting in the future. We can just directly fight. Let's see who kills who in the end. Time will tell. Hey, what are you still doing here? Friend, are you planning on shamelessly staying here and begging for a meal? They had expressed their attitude, so he was expressing his. They would be true enemies in the future. You kill me, I kill you. This was right and proper. There was no need to find any excuse. They could simply fight to the death. Yue Xihan, Di Long, and the other experts were all gloomy. Some of them had some worry and fear in their eyes. They recalled how the Eastern Xin region's sects had been destroyed one by one. What if Long Chen suddenly came to their sects as well? Would they be able to stop him? Quite a few experts began to regret coming here. They hadn't expected things to end up like this. They were stuck between two hard choices. I feel like there's no need to rush a judgment while things are not fully clear. We can continue investigating. If this is a mistake, it would be best not to harm the peace, said an elder, clearly a bit afraid. That's right. We need to investigate the matter of the original devil race before coming to a conclusion. We definitely won't let off a bad person, but we definitely won't wrongly accuse a good person. Others immediately began to agree with that person's words. More and more of the experts began to say that they had to consider this matter at length, and that fighting amongst themselves was foolish. They would become laughingstocks in history. In the end, Di Long, Yue Xihan, and that expert from the Xian beasts conversed secretly for a while before saying that they would definitely investigate this matter. Chu Jianying smiled, knowing that the three of them were trying to find a way out of this predicament for themselves. She also said that the Martial Heaven continent would do a full investigation. After that, Yue Xiaoyun and the others scattered. The Xiantian Dao sect returned to its original calm. Upon returning to the Xiantian Tower, Chu Jianying, whose expression had been calm, suddenly tried to grab Long Chen's ear and twist it. "You little brat." As soon as Di Long, Yue Xiaoyun, and the others left, Long Chen had felt that Chu Jianying's gaze was a bit off, and so he had been on guard. As soon as Chu Jianying's arm had reached toward him, he had turned and dodged behind the patriarch, hiding. "You little brat, you dare to dodge?" raged Chu Jianying. "Alliance head, if there's anything to say, we can talk about it properly. Long Chen is already grown up, and treating him like this is a bit unsuitable," said the patriarch. Since the patriarch was the only one whose cultivation base and seniority were high enough to say such things to Chu Jianying, he could only thicken his face. "What? Once he's grown up, I can't beat him? Just because he obtained first place on the Devil Slaughter rankings, I can't admonish him? You little scoundrel, I was in the midst of thinking how to reward you when you stirred up such trouble. He gave me that much trouble so quickly, why can't I set him straight?" Raged Chu Jianying. This matter can't be blamed on Long Chen. It was entirely those people who went too far. Even the Xiantian Tower couldn't bear it, explained the patriarch hastily. "Don't bring up such useless things. I'm more aware of Di Long and Yue Xiaoyun's intentions than you are. I simply find this little scoundrel to be displeasing. So what if I want to vent?" Chu Jianying glared at Long Chen. "Alliance head, I worked so hard to get first place for you. How can you find me displeasing?" said Long Chen in an aggrieved manner. "Do you still not realize that these two matters are unrelated? You're a typical case of a child who will start tearing out roof tiles if you aren't disciplined every day. If I let you off so easily, sooner or later you'll cause such trouble that even I won't be able to handle it." Casting Long Chen a sideways glance, Chu Jianying added, "As for that woman, you should be careful. As soon as anyone catches solid proof, you will immediately become the enemy of the world. Your enemies won't let that opportunity go. When the time comes, even if I were to sacrifice my own life, I wouldn't be able to protect you." Chu Jianying's words gravely emphasized the danger. Long Chen's argument clearly hadn't tricked her, nor could it trick Di Long, Yue Xiaoyun, and the others. The only reason Yue Xiaoyun and the others had left was because they had no solid proof, and with Chu Jianying and the Xiantian Dao sect fully supporting Long Chen, there was no way for them to use force against him. Just because they had left now didn't mean that they had given up. It was the opposite. They would be keeping a close eye on him in the future, and if he slipped up, then the venomous viper that had been lying in wait for so long would strike, killing him in one bite. So Chu Jianying had to admonish him, or it would be too late if Long Chen were to act without thinking of the consequences. However, even Chu Jianying did not ask the truth about Yue Xiaoqian. Clearly, this topic was taboo even for her. "I understand." Long Chen knew that Chu Jianying was doing this for his own good. The four of them sat down. Long Chen once more told the whole story of what had happened. Although that matter had passed, Long Chen's fury still ignited when he explained how someone from Heavenly Fate Island had sabotaged them. Alliance head, I don't understand. Why would Heavenly Fate Island do so much to target Long Chen? That's not their usual style, asked Li Tianxian. Because the old master of Heavenly Fate Island went into seclusion 800 years ago, and during this time Duan Tianya is in charge of Heavenly Fate Island. You know Duan Tianya's relationship with Xian Jizi, correct? Said Chu Jianying. Li Tianxian was startled. You mean the rumors are true? Xian Jizi is Duan Tianya's secret bastard child? It's most likely true. Otherwise, considering how Xian Jizi harmed others in the past, then according to Heavenly Fate Island's rules, he'd have been executed. The fact that he was only expelled and even managed to establish the Grand Heavenly Fate Pavilion in the Grand Han definitely has Duan Tianya's shadow behind it. Then Xian Jizi suddenly vanished, while that matter of Long San suddenly appeared in Pill Valley right while Xian Jizi was there. Even without the ability to read fate, I know this matter was done by Long Chen. Duan Tianya has hundreds of ways to determine the true cause of Xian Jizi's death. Long Chen, tell me, am I correct? Chu Jianying looked at Long Chen. Cough, actually it wasn't done by just me. I did it with the Pill Fairy. If we were splitting the merit, she would be the main culprit, said Long Chen awkwardly. He really hadn't known that Xian Jizi had such a background. He guessed that the Pill Fairy also hadn't known. It must be a secret only the senior generation knew. After a moment's hesitation, Long Chen finally decided to ask. He greatly longed to know the secret of the original devil race and why they had become enemies with the entire world. Alliance head, when it comes the original dash, this isn't a question you should ask. It's taboo. It would be best if you never mentioned it. Chu Jianying immediately interrupted him. She then profoundly added, there are no absolute rights or wrongs in this world. You've already grown up, and you know your responsibility. The reason I normally admonish you is in hopes that you will be more cautious in the future instead of always leaving a pile of crap for your seniors to clean up after you. After all, you've also grown into a large tree capable of blocking the wind and rain. You have to consider the big picture instead of being hot-tempered and charging forward blindly. However, when it comes to your choice, both myself and your sect leader support you. You must form your own opinion and determine your own responsibility. As long as you think your choice is right, then you do it. However, in that process, it would be best if you left yourself a path out so that you can survive while you still haven't grown to your peak state. Otherwise, the next time Heavenly Fate Island sneak attacks you, you won't be this lucky. Chu Jianying reached out and straightened Long Chen's collar. The current Chu Jianying didn't have any of the imposing dignity of the leader of the Martial Heaven Alliance. Instead, she seemed like an elder kindly teaching a child. Many thanks, Alliance head. Long Chen was moved inside. From the start, Chu Jianying had viewed him as her own child. What is there to thank? If that old man heard you thank me, he'd break your leg. Chu Jianying smiled faintly, but that smile contained a trace of worry. The odds of failure when attempting to break through the Nether Passage realm were extremely high. No one was guaranteed to pass. Right now, all she could do was wait. Senior Chu, how should we handle Heavenly Fate Island? Asked Li Tianxian. There's no need for us to do anything. Let them continue. They are interfering with the Heavenly Daos, so they won't have a good end. People like them walk the precipice between the inside and the outside of the Heavenly Daos. Having made such a huge movement that interferes with the natural order of the Heavenly Daos, the Heavenly Daos will definitely not let them off easily. When the time comes, their deaths will definitely be miserable ones. Chu Jianying shook her head. Heavenly Fate Island cultivated the ability to see through the heavens. This kind of profession seemed amazing, but it was like dancing on the tip of a blade. If they only viewed things from the perspective of a bystander, perhaps it would be better. However, if they tried to interfere with fate, the Heavenly Daos would immediately lock onto them. That was why Heavenly Fate Island didn't have many true disciples. Many of them died to heavenly tribulation because once you were locked onto by the Heavenly Daos, when the time for your tribulation came, your heavenly tribulation would turn into heavenly punishment. Countless experts longed to be able to know the future while not imagining the danger involved. Each year, millions of disciples would enter Heavenly Fate Island to cultivate, but the number that could become core disciples was less than 1 in 10,000. Heavenly Fate Island didn't even need trials to wash out their disciples. If they could survive their tribulations, then they could continue studying the way to peer into the heavens. Many disciples committed a taboo of the heavenly Taos without even realizing it. When their tribulation transformed into heavenly punishment, they were turned to dust. So, training in heaven-peering arts was like standing on a raised pole above a 30,000-meter cliff. Whether you went left or right, if you went past a limit, you would fall. An old monster like Duan Tianya definitely wouldn't be so foolish as to personally do anything to Chen. Most likely, he had used a large number of disciples to collect information about Chen from many different angles. That was the only possibility as to how he had made such a perfect scheme. He might not be as affected, but all those people who obeyed his orders would definitely die when their tribulations came. However, if Heavenly Fate Island wants to, can't they reuse these people? Asked Li Tianxian. After all, they would die in any case. Using them once meant they died, but using them 10 times also meant that they died. Why not use the same people over and over again? You're overthinking it. They will only have one chance to do such large-scale calculations against Chen. Such large movements will definitely draw the attention of the Heavenly Taos. The Heavenly Taos will protect themselves, screening the lines of fate from those people. Duan Tianya would have to use another batch of people, however. If he does that, ignoring whether or not he cares if there will be any disciples left to carry out Heavenly Fate Island's inheritance, he himself will not get off lightly. If he tries to undergo such a large movement again, with him in charge twice, the Heavenly Taos will lock onto him. Although he's at the Nether Passage realm and has no hope of further advancements, the heavens have other ways to punish people. His longevity will shorten by hundreds or even thousands of times. Do you think he would dare? Chu Jianying smiled. So that's the case. Li Tianxian and Chen understood now. No wonder Chu Jianying dared to say that they wouldn't be able to pull off such a scheme again. In truth, Heavenly Fate Island was just a group of people that were full of tricks. But the Heavenly Taos were merciless, and if they interfered with the Heavenly Taos, they would invoke karma. However, even if Heavenly Fate Island does not try to read your fate again, you can't be careless. They have great influence, so be careful of them setting you up for something. In any case, just make sure not to give them anything they can use against you. You can leave the rest to me. As long as there's no proof, you can mess around as much as you want. I'll handle them, said Chu Jianying. Chen smiled. The feeling of having someone supporting him was truly good. However, some enmities had to be avenged personally. He had to give Heavenly Fate Island a painful lesson. Alright, let's not talk about these things. Aren't you interested in the reward for this battle? As soon as Chu Jianying said this, Chen's eyes began to shine. Money. The Martial Heaven Alliance controlled a huge part of the entire continent's wealth. The Martial Heaven Alliance had its own ores and businesses. Originally, the Martial Heaven Alliance was established by all the continent's righteous sections. Although the Martial Heaven Alliance had such a huge amount of health, they were only in charge of overseeing it. They did not have the authority to directly use it. A portion of the Martial Heaven Alliance's wealth came from a yearly tax each large sect had to pay. Another portion came from the Martial Heaven Alliance's own mines and businesses, and another portion came from battle spoils won in battles against the corrupt path. This wealth was jointly owned, and each sect would pay tax according to its scale. Considering just how many righteous sects there were, the total sum was an astonishing amount. After all these years, the amount of wealth that it had accumulated could only be described as terrifying. However, this wealth had to be spent on defending the righteous path, raising geniuses, and rewarding merit. Furthermore, any large expenditures had to have the Alliance head's personal nod of approval, as well as the elders. That was to avoid anyone being selfish or corrupt and abusing that wealth. Now, Long Chen had led the Xian Tiandao sect's disciples to defend the entire eastern Xian region's Devil Abyss. That meant that the Xian Tiandao sect was receiving all the eastern Xian region's reward. In the past, each time the Devil Abyss erupted, it would mean the sacrifices of countless disciples. The compensation for these disciples went to their sections, a single region's sects numbered in the tens of thousands. Each sect was given a reward based on their accomplishments, and just those rewards were extremely plentiful. Because the rest of the eastern Xian region's sects had been instigated by others to not participate in the Devil Abyss, all their reward was going to the Xian Tiandao sect. What shocked Long Chen was that the reward set for the eastern Xian region was a staggering sum of 15 billion spirit crystals. However, thinking about it, when 15 billion spirit crystals were split between tens of thousands of sects, just how much could each sect get? It wasn't just the sum that was shocking, but it also allowed Long Chen to see the power of the Martial Heaven Alliance. After all, the eastern Xian region was just one of the 4 weaker regions. The central Xian region's reward was definitely even greater because it had more sects and more devil creatures. Long Chen, I actually have to apologize for this matter of the rewards. Because the rewards for the eastern, western, southern, and northern regions always have to stay the same according to the rules. Chu Jianying couldn't help apologizing. This rule was based on the Devil Abyss's formation that split the devil creatures into several channels. The central Xian region was always the main force, so it got a larger reward, while the rest of the devil creatures were split between the other 4 regions equally, so the reward was split equally as well. However, Long Chen had killed an even larger number of the devil creatures due to Heavenly Fate Island's sabotage. According to reason, he should obtain an even greater reward. Unfortunately, that matter was an accident, something unexpected. So if she wanted to reward Long Chen, she would have to go through the elders and have this matter fully investigated first. Heavenly Fate Island was so crafty, and they couldn't have left behind any evidence. Since this matter would remain murky and unclear, it would be very difficult to give Long Chen his big reward. Furthermore, Long Chen's kill points had explosively grown, to the point where there was no longer a number. That was also something that had not occurred in the history of the devil slaughtering rankings. Chu Jianying was clearer than anyone just how strict the reward system of the Martial Heaven Alliance was. Without bringing out all the evidence, obtaining the reward was very, very difficult. That was why Long Chen's current reward was just the base reward. The aftermath of Heavenly Fate Island was not taken into account, so those life star level winged devils he had slain were not counted. If Long Chen wished to persevere in chasing after that reward, the Elder Hall of the Martial Heaven Alliance would send experts to investigate this matter, but with their strict rules, the chances of him obtaining the reward were slim. Chu Jianying disliked these strict and unbending rules, but there was nothing she could do about them, as they were passed down from countless years ago. Furthermore, without these strict rules, many people would be able to pull tricks with the reward, leading to greater corruption and greed. At that time, the day of the Martial Heaven Alliance's collapse would not be far. So despite how much Long Chen had done, she couldn't help him, making her feel guilty. It's fine. In any case, this is enough money for me. Long Chen smiled. The reason he lacked money was because he needed to rebuild the Shentiandao sect. 15 billion spirit crystals was more than enough. After discussing it with Li Tianxian, they decided to split the 15 billion spirit crystals into 3 even portions. One portion would go to the Heaven-Splitting Battle Sect. Li Tianxian told Long Chen that in truth, the Heaven-Splitting Battle Sect was so poor that they had nothing to eat. They had been reducing the number of disciples they were recruiting with each passing year. However, the Heaven-Splitting Battle Sect cared far too much about face. If Li Tianxian were to give them this money, they definitely wouldn't accept it. It would be up to Long Chen to handle that. Both the Heaven-Splitting Battle Sect and the Xian Tiandao Sect were united, and they were like Long Chen's family. Considering their absolute trust in him, Long Chen wouldn't let them suffer. Of course, there was no way that he could give his own money to the Heaven-Splitting Battle Sect. With the old man's character, he would definitely beat Long Chen. However, when it came to splitting this reward after all the hard work had been done, there was no reason for the old man to refuse. The second portion of the money would go to the Shen Tiandao sect. It was enough to finish the construction and more. As for the remaining portion, Long Chen proposed splitting it amongst the families of the disciples who had died in the battle this time. This kind of compensation was too generous. It made even Chu Jianying nod with approval. It was no wonder so many disciples would follow Long Chen to death. After all, based on the current situation, just taking out 1 billion spirit crystals as compensation would be a stunning move. Long Chen, Yu and Guoran both entered the top 10. There are more benefits to that than you realize. As for what they are, you'll see soon. Chu Jianying smiled. Other than the reward for defending the Devil Abyss eruption, there is also the reward for dealing such a blow to the corrupt path. Little Li Tianxian, you did well. This situation will be quickly verified, so it won't be long before we can confirm the damage done. In any case, you know what to do. Whether it's spirit crystals, divine items, or other spiritual objects, just request what you want. Many thanks, Senior. Li Tianxian smiled. It wasn't just Long Chen who had put in work this time. Li Tianxian had also dealt a blow to the Corrupt Path's Nether Passage experts, and that came with a plentiful reward. So even though Long Chen had practically given away 5 billion spirit crystals to the families of the fallen, Li Tianxian didn't mind. That money had been earned by Long Chen, and he could spend it however he pleased. Also, the Shen Tiandao Sect's grand formation would be completed soon, so they wouldn't need that many spirit crystals anyway. Using a scheme, Li Tianxian had managed to heavily injure the Corrupt Path's 3 Devil Kings. Once that matter was investigated, he would get his reward. After all, he had crippled a Nether Passage expert. Alright, that's all the rewards I have. When I leave, try not to cause so much trouble. However, before leaving, let me warn you first, Long Chen. Don't think that taking first place on the Devil Slaughter rankings means that you can look down on the other experts, warned Chu Jianying. Don't worry, I definitely won't get a big head from this. After all, the reason I got first place was largely due to luck. Long Chen nodded. If it hadn't been for Yue Xihan unleashing a divine ability that had completely stunned those Life Star level Empyrean winged blood devils, making them lose their ability to defend, his double dragon destruction wouldn't have been able to annihilate them. At most, he would have managed to kill the ones in the core region, but beyond that, it would be difficult to kill any more. Furthermore, other people had been killing Empyrean winged blood devils that were only on the soul transformation level, while he had been killing those on the Life Star level, giving him more points. It could be said that he had practically been cheating. If everyone had been in a similar situation, he wouldn't necessarily have gotten first place. So he didn't feel any superiority or confidence from getting first place. Chu Jianying nodded. Sometimes, Long Chen was still reliable. Then let me say this. All those who entered the top 10 are extremely powerful existences. That Leng Yueyan from the Corrupt Path is someone you want to be extremely cautious of. Rumor is that she possesses the spirit body of the corrupt god and will inherit the corrupt god's will in the future. You've already seen her killing power, but based on the information I gathered on her, she has no supreme area attacks. In other words, she got those kill points by swinging her sword. Furthermore, her kill points rose at a very steady rate, meaning she didn't unleash any large moves. That's the most terrifying part, the fact that she got so many kill points while barely trying. The fact that Leng Yueyan's kill points had risen at a steady pace showed that she hadn't released her full power. In that kind of scenario, she had still taken second. So Chu Jianying used the word terrifying to describe Leng Yueyan. That Leng Yueyan is a supreme expert of the corrupt path and upholds the corrupt god's mission. She is fated to be your mortal enemy, so don't be careless, warned Chu Jianying. Long Chen nodded. He had always felt her to be a formidable opponent capable of taking his life. He was even a bit afraid of her. Inside, he didn't want to be enemies with her. However, they were on opposite sides. Sooner or later, they would face each other, and one of them would die. Although Leng Yueyan had said that she would no longer try to kill him, that was relating only to their personal relationship. It didn't mean that she wouldn't attack if it was a battle between the righteous and corrupt paths. That kind of clash was unavoidable. Unless there came a day when Leng Yueyan betrayed the corrupt path, or Long Chen betrayed the righteous path, They would have to face each other with weapons in hands. Unfortunately, that was impossible. Long Chen's hatred toward the corrupt path would never change. Although he also didn't have any good feeling toward the righteous path, as there were far too many idiots inside it who fought amongst themselves all day long, he also knew that not everyone in the righteous path was like that. It was just that the control of many sects was in the hands of a group of idiots. In any case, his own position would not change, and Lin Yueyan's position would not change. The two of them had not encountered each other in a long time, but when that time came, it would probably be a battle to the death. Although Lin Yueyan is frightening, I'm still not that worried about her. The one I'm most worried about is Dong Mingyu. Before the eruption of the Devil Abyss, Dong Mingyu assassinated a nether passage expert. Chu Jianying's expression was grave. But how is that possible? Long Chen was shocked. Dong Mingyu was actually able to kill nether passage experts. Even Long Chen felt incomparably shocked. Even now, although he was strong enough to slap Di Long in the face repeatedly, that was when Di Long was caught off guard and had no defense up. If a nether passage expert were to use their full strength, then Long Chen would be sending himself to his death if he fought them. Even his chances of getting away alive would be very low. Hence, it was absolutely shocking to him that Dong Mingyu could kill a nether passage expert. You don't need to be too shocked. Dong Mingyu can assassinate a nether passage expert, not kill one. There's still a difference between them, said Chu Jiany. Assassination relied on opportunity, while killing relied on power. However, even in that case, managing to sneak attack a nether passage expert in control of life and death energy definitely couldn't be done entirely by luck. Let alone assassinating a nether passage expert, just holding the slightest hostility toward them as you approached would be instantly sensed by them. Assassinating one of them was essentially impossible. However, Dong Mingyu had done it. Rumor is that Dong Mingyu has awakened the killing god's blood mark, and her assassination arts are unmatched. She is the strongest killer in the history of the Blood Kill Hall. As you are already classified as a target that she must kill, you absolutely must be careful. An assassin is the most troublesome existence, warned Chu Jiany. Long Chen nodded, but he wasn't afraid. Having fought against the Blood Kill Hall so much, the 9-star hegemon body art had practically memorized their aura. He wasn't afraid of their assassinations. However, he definitely had to be careful of this Dong Mingyu. She was an assassin who did not specialize in group fighting, nor did she specialize in power, yet she still obtained 3rd place. That meant that her one-on-one killing power had to be on an extreme level. Otherwise, there was no way she could assassinate a nether passage expert. Speaking of which, who did Dong Mingyu assassinate? Asked Long Chen curiously. Chu Jianying's expression became odd. Her own master. Her master? Yes. The Blood Kill Hall has this kind of inheritance where apprentices will try to assassinate their masters, while the masters will also try to assassinate their apprentices once the latter manage to threaten their position. These kinds of ancient conventions aren't something outsiders like us would understand. In any case, assassins assassinating assassins is very normal to them, said Chu Jiany. Li Tianxian and the Patriarch seemed to have expected that result. They understood more about the Blood Kill Hall than Long Chen. Then does that mean that the Blood Kill Hall's nether passage experts are more terrifying than other nether passage experts? If even her own master couldn't avoid being killed by her, couldn't she kill other nether passage experts easily? Asked Long Chen with disbelief. Chu Jianying shook her head. You can't extrapolate this matter that way. The Blood Kill Hall's disciples and masters are constantly scheming against each other. It includes their habits, how they prefer to attack, their patterns, their flaws, all of it is a constant whirlpool of scheming. Their profession's unique point is that other than the killing god and themselves, they won't trust anyone else. Everyone else is an enemy. When they see others, they are constantly calculating their flaws and how to kill them. So the Blood Kill Hall's assassins prefer to be carrying out missions rather than staying in the Blood Kill Hall, because if they stayed for too long, others would have more chances to secretly observe them, and it would be even more dangerous. That's why the fact that Dong Mingyu could assassinate her Nether Passage master is because she is very familiar with her master. Of course, we can't know if she relied on power or scheming to kill her master, but in any case, she is very dangerous, even more dangerous than Leng Yuan. I understand. Long Chen nodded. As for that true immortal Jiaoqi, he's quite an amazing figure. He possesses 2 different bloodlines, one from the heavenly blood river drake and the other from the storm wind Qilin. The storm wind Qilin might not be the true divine beast known as the Qilin, but it contains a trace of the Qilin's blood. Their speed is shocking. As for his father, he's a supreme expert from the heavenly blood river drake race, one with an extremely pure bloodline. This race specializes in power. In fact, their power approaches the power of dragons. So true immortal Jiaoqi was born with practically divine power. He inherited the divine abilities of the heavenly blood river drake and the speed of the storm wind Qilin. He possesses both great power and speed and is a very terrifying existence amongst the Xian beasts. If you face him alone in the future, it might be difficult to avoid a fierce battle. Be careful. Chu Jianying was solemn when it came to true immortal Jiaoqi. He also wasn't ordinary. After talking about true immortal Jiaoqi, she continued, as for Mo Nian, there's nothing to say, correct? I heard you are good friends? Yes. More accurately, we should be classified as life and death brothers. Long Chen nodded. All right then. You flipped the eastern Xian region, while Mo Nian caused chaos in the western Xian region. You two really are a pair of brothers. The 2 of you have been called the Eastern Madman and the Western Wretch. He really is wretched. He actually calls himself a scholar, a pioneer of archaeology and an explorer of geology. He says he is unearthing the civilization and the culture of the ancients. But in truth, he is just doing shameful things all day. Many years ago, the Mo family was majestic and grand. Now, this little fellow has fallen to the point of digging up tombs to vent. It makes one sigh. Chu Jianying really did sigh, her expression one of sorrow. Alliance head, are you saying Mo Nian's family was very amazing back in the day? Asked Long Chen. Of course they were. Back then, the leader of the ancient family alliance was the Mo family. The D family only took their place later on. As for what happened then, you don't need to ask. Something as messy and chaotic as that gives me a headache as soon as it's mentioned. Chu Jianying waved her hand. She clearly was very discontented with the D family, and her voice seemed to contain a kind of disdain. She didn't wish to talk about it. Since you call him your brother, it is fated that you will go against D Long. It's no wonder D Long would be so shameless in an effort to eliminate you. After finding something to rely on, does the D family think they can get away with anything? Does he not realize that once he loses that support that he relies on, he will have become so weak himself that he won't be able to stand? Whatever, that's not your affair. Just talking about these things is irritating. Long Chen, just be careful. Don't get tricked by the devil slaughter rankings, said Chu Jianying. Tricked? Yes, don't think that the strongest geniuses are on the devil slaughter rankings. First of all, the ancient races, Xian beasts, Corrupt Path, Ancient Family Alliance, and other powers only chose to send a single representative. Those representatives have amazing area attacks that give them an advantage when it comes to the devil slaughter rankings, but that doesn't mean that those people are necessarily the strongest, said Chu Jianying. Long Chen nodded. I know, not everyone powerful is skilled in group fighting, and not everyone likes standing out. If I had a choice, I also wouldn't want to take first place. From the start, he hadn't been planning on taking first place. His goal had been for Guoran to have it. However, his plans had been forced to change. Many people were definitely thinking like him, so the Devil Slaughter rankings could not be used to say that those were the strongest geniuses of this world. At most, it could be used as a rough reference. I almost forgot, you should also take note of that Hu Feng and Xia Chen. I've investigated Xia Chen, and he should be the heir to the Spirit Immortal Formation Sect from ancient times. This sect had essentially vanished for tens of thousands of years, but now it has reappeared. Rumor is that the Spirit Immortal Formation Sect has no actual combat power, so they don't like to reveal themselves. However, once they establish a formation, it is capable of overturning the land and sea. Even peak experts, no matter how high their cultivation base or combat power, will end up dying if they fall into their formation. As for Hu Feng, he's also a marvel. He should be the one to inherit the legendary gambling Heavenly Dao. The heirs of the gambling Heavenly Dao all have a strange nickname, the 50-50s. The 50-50s? Long Chen didn't understand what that meant. Li Tianxian was the one who explained. It seems the great era has truly started to descend if even the gambling Heavenly Dao's heir has appeared. The gambling Heavenly Dao's heirs live off gambling. It's a very strange sect. It is said that they do not cultivate magical arts or spiritual yuan. Instead, they cultivate luck. It's an ancient sect, one that was mysterious even in the ancient era. There are very few recordings of them. In each generation, there will only be one heir, and there is no need for a master and apprentice to pass down the inheritance. Sometimes, a new heir will appear after a few hundred years, and sometimes there might be no news of them even after thousands of years. However, one thing is certain. That is that all the gambling Heavenly Dao's heirs have heaven-defying luck, and it is very difficult for them to be killed by someone. When they encounter an opponent, no matter how high that opponent's cultivation base, no matter how strong they are, they will always have a 50% chance of winning. But why does that sound so completely unreliable? Long Chen couldn't believe it. If this Hu Feng encountered a nether passage expert at the Sea Expansion realm, he would still have a 50% chance of winning? Yes. This is the power of the gambling Heavenly Dao. Even if Hu Feng was just at the Xiantian realm, he would still have a 50% chance of winning. However, due to their heaven-defying luck, it's almost impossible for them to encounter enemies that are stronger than them. That's the only reason this strange nickname of 50-50s appeared. Even in the entire cultivation world, only the gambling Heavenly Dao's heirs have such heaven-defying abilities. Long Chen, there are all kinds of marvels in this world. With the great era silently descending, sects that belonged only in legends have started to awaken. All kinds of monsters are being born. You cannot be overconfident. That's correct. Even the heirs of the Spirit Immortal Formation sect and gambling Heavenly Dao have appeared. More monsters like them will appear. This is an era of marvels as well as an era of blood. No one knows who will be the one to walk to the peak of the martial path and dominate this era, added Chu Jianying. I understand. For some reason, Long Chen didn't feel any pressure. Instead, he felt a grand feeling. This era was growing more and more interesting. Chu Jianying said a few more words before leaving. She had too many things to handle, and that made Long Chen sigh. If she was so busy, how did she have time to cultivate? Reporting to the Shen Master, a man calling himself Xia Chen had come asking to see senior apprentice brother Long Chen. He was a thin and somewhat frail-looking man, with a fair complexion. He didn't look like a martial artist but rather almost scholarly. If he wore a scholar's band and held a white fan in his hand, he would look even more like one. That was the first impression that Xia Chen gave Long Chen. Long Chen could sense his aura and knew that he was definitely a soul transformation expert. However, the fluctuations of his spiritual yuan were very weak, so weak that Long Chen found it unimaginable. They were even weaker than a foundation forging expert. Are you surprised? In a private room, Xia Chen faced Long Chen with a slight smile. I really am a bit. No wonder you were unwilling to reveal yourself until now, said Long Chen. It's not that I was unwilling but that I didn't dare. I'm very afraid of dying. Xia Chen smiled bitterly. A formation cultivator didn't necessarily have a good life. They could only move within the protection of their own formations. If they left their formations, they would be like plucked hedgehogs. They would lose all ability to resist. It was a rare profession in the cultivation world. They had both amazing powers as well as fatal weaknesses. Long Chen knew that Xia Chen couldn't reveal himself easily, as that was exposing himself to danger. Even the weakest of Empyreans would be able to easily slay him. I've never had a chance to thank you. However, I also don't like such formality, so if you have any difficulties, just tell me, said Long Chen. Whether it was the barrier in the Grand Xia or the formation diagram he had gifted to the Tiandao sect, those were huge favors. A single word of thanks was unable to make up for it. Brother Long, you're as direct as the rumors said. Yes, I came to ask if you have any of the devil cores of the Empyrean winged blood devils that had reached the life star level. Chen also spoke directly upon seeing Long Chen was so straightforward. I do. How many? Long Chen thought for a moment. I'm not too sure on the exact number, but it should be over 100,000. It was Lu Rian who had cleaned up the battlefield. Long Chen didn't know how many devil cores she had gathered, but he knew how many of the Empyrean winged blood devils he had slain. Those Empyrean winged blood devils had been extremely strong, and their devil cores were priceless treasures. Even the devil cores belonging to those at the soul transformation level had managed to survive the touch of the black water, so the ones belonging to the life star level should be even harder to destroy and must have mostly survived. Over 100,000? Chen gasped upon hearing that number. He then bitterly smiled. No wonder your Dragonblood Legion is so powerful, the #1 legion on the Martial Heaven continent. This kind of money-making ability is unrivaled. The value of the devil cores from soul transformation level heavenly winged blood devils was extremely high, while the devil cores from those at the life star level were absolute treasures. The total price of the devil cores in Long Chen's hands was not lower than the reward Chu Jianying had given them. You came for the life star level devil cores? Asked Long Chen. Chen smiled with a touch of embarrassment, but he thickened his face and nodded. All right, then I'll call someone over to get them all for you. The devil cores might be treasures, but they weren't valuable when compared to lives. Back in the Grand Han, if it hadn't been for Chen's barrier, it was unknown how many Dragonblood warriors would have died. So if Chen needed the devil cores, Long Chen would give them all to him without hesitation. He immediately called for someone. Wait a moment. Chen hastily waved his hand. What is it? Chen was conflicted. He sighed. In truth, I shouldn't have come to the Tiandao sect. Why is that? Asked Long Chen curiously. I've long since heard about your magnanimity and grandness that gives you the charisma to win over others. I didn't want to see you because I didn't want to be won over as well. I made all kinds of preparations before coming, but I didn't expect to fall into your trap with just a word from you, said Chen. Long Chen couldn't help but smile. He understood what Chen meant. I'm not such a good person, but I know how to repay favors. If someone helps me, I'll remember them. Didn't you also help me because I helped your Grand Xia? Money is just a worldly possession, and compared to the lives of my brothers, these devil cores are worthless. Of course, if you were to join the Dragonblood Legion, we would all be brothers, and we would welcome you with open arms. If you would rather continue being a lone operator without any constraints, I won't force you either. We would still be friends and brothers. However, I feel like the Dragonblood Legion suits you very well. If you were to join, your weakness would be made up for by others. By joining a group, you would become a real expert. Chen bitterly smiled. Sorry, I rather like being alone. That's fine. Even if we aren't together, we can still cooperate. There will still be chances to fight alongside each other in the future. Long Chen didn't mind Chen's refusal. Top experts always like to be solitary. They were used to it, and it was very difficult for them to join a group. This was just their habit, and they felt a revulsion toward groups. Just as the two of them were speaking, Guoran came into the room, holding a spatial ring in his hand. Let me introduce you to. This is Guoran, one of my brothers, said Long Chen. I've long since heard the great name of the Golden Armor Warrior. You even managed to leave your name on the Devil Slaughter rankings this time. Congratulations. Chen cupped his hands toward Guoran. Wait, the Golden Armor Warrior? I actually have such an amazing nickname? I didn't even know. Brother, no, big bro, my dearest brother, do you know any other stories about me? Please, let me hear them. Here, I'll pour some water right now. Guoran immediately forgot everything else after hearing this nickname. Stop messing around and give the spatial ring to Chen, said Long Chen. Chen? You're Chen? Guoran jumped. Long Chen took the spatial ring from Guoran's hand and gave it to Xiachen. All the life star level Empyrean winged blood devils devil cores are in here. Xiachen received the spatial ring. After that, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. You win. I wish to join the Dragonblood Legion. Xiachen was a generation's genius and the heir of the Grand Spirit Immortal Formation Sect. However, he had been completely won over by Long Chen's methods. The reason he had refused to join the Dragonblood Legion before had just been a test. However, even though he had refused to join, Long Chen had still given him all these priceless devil cores that had won Xiachen over. Ha! The fool, you've fallen for it. Guoran suddenly laughed. From outside the door, Gu Yang, Li Qi, Song Mingyuan, and Yu Zifeng walked in. They cupped their fists to Xiachen. Congratulations on joining the Dragonblood Legion. After greeting Xiachen, they unwillingly bowed toward Guoran and said, Boss Guoran. What are you fellows up to? Demanded Long Chen. Xiachen was startled and suddenly looked at the spatial ring in his hand. Only now did he look inside it to see that there were no devil cores inside. Instead, there was just a piece of paper. That paper had a single line of ugly writing on it. Congratulations on joining the Dragonblood Legion. Starting today, we're all brothers, so don't take offense from this little joke. Haha, wasn't I right? What hero could possibly resist boss's charisma? Those who can resist aren't heroes. You didn't believe me when I said this, but look now. Your boss Guoran's prophecy has come true. Guoran laughed, extremely pleased with himself. It seemed that they had already received word that Xiachen had come. Guoran had prophesied that Xiachen wouldn't be able to run away after coming. He would definitely join the Dragonblood Legion. Gu Yang and the others had felt that Xiachen joining them would be very difficult. After all, he had always been a solitary figure. Even if he could become friends with Long Chen, it wasn't likely that he would join the Dragonblood Legion. As a result, they had made a bet, and Guoran had won. Xiachen's expression was odd while Long Chen was speechless. He scolded, Guoran, this joke of yours is a bit too much. It's not too much at all. Big brother Xiachen definitely won't get angry, right? Guoran laughed and nudged Xiachen. Let me tell you, joining the Dragonblood Legion is definitely the best decision of your life. With your divine formations and my forging arts, plus boss's wealth, we can accomplish anything. You want to merge my formations with your forging? Xiachen's eyes suddenly began to shine. Exactly. Adding your formations onto my concealed weapons and then adding my concealed weapons into your formations. That kind of power, Guoran involuntarily gulped. His fervent expression was very frightening. I haven't thought of that. If we could merge your explosives into my formations, their power would multiply. However, I haven't managed to merge my formations with martial weapons. I don't know if it will work, but we can try it. Xiachen was also excited. This kind of thinking was absolutely wild. It was practically a fantasy. However, Guoran felt that it was possible, and the two of them clicked instantly. There's no time to lose. Let's start testing right now. Guoran was a fanatic when it came to testing new things like this. He didn't even want to waste a second. We have to have a celebration for Xiachen first, said Gu Yang. There's no need for a celebration. I feel like some of Guoran's ideas might really work, and I also want to test them out. Sometimes inspiration is fleeting, so we can't wait. No one had expected Xiachen to also be such a fanatic. He and Guoran were birds of a feather, and they vanished like a puff of smoke. Long Chen and the others looked at each other. This ending was so sudden that they didn't quite know how to react. Guoran and Xiachen had actually hit it off so easily. I feel like with those two fellows together, they'll be able to create some extraordinary unique things. Gu Yang looked in the direction the two of them had left. The others nodded profoundly. With Guoran's crazy ideas, he could come up with anything. Adding formations into the mix, who knew what he would make? Xiachen really stayed just like that? It's hard to believe. Gu Yang and the others felt that this was too sudden. He wanted to join from the start. It's just that experts always have to find an excuse so they won't embarrass themselves. Long Chen smiled. Gu Yang gave him a thumbs up. Boss is wise. Long Chen shook his head. There's nothing wise about it. Even if he didn't join, I would do my best to help him when he needs it. Xia Chen is like us and doesn't like owing favors. Considering our compatible characters, we'd sooner or later be one family. As soon as Long Chen had seen Xia Chen here, he had essentially seen through the latter's thoughts. Although Xia Chen was strong, he was isolated from the rest of the world and wasn't able to hide his emotions as well as others. As for Long Chen, having had to deal with all kinds of people since childhood and enduring countless setbacks, he could guess a person's character and thoughts with just a glance. So he wasn't surprised that Xia Chen would join at all. However, the fact that Guoran would be so excited about Xia Chen joining was a bit of a surprise. The two of them had hit it off as soon as they met, so much so that it was like they regretted not having met earlier. The only bad side to Xia Chen joining was that the pressure on Long Chen to make more money had increased. He had long since heard that formation cultivator was a profession that burned the most money in this world. Furthermore, it was the kind of profession that cost greatly but didn't get any return. Most of the time, a formation cultivator's income would come from being hired by others to establish or design formations. The Dragonblood Legion was full of warriors. They might be good at fighting, but making money was not their forte. Fortunately, the best money-making profession was alchemists. As long as Long Chen continuously refined pills, he would be able to raise this huge legion. Long Chen told Li Tianxian and the Patriarch that Xia Chen had joined the Dragonblood Legion. The Patriarch was shocked, while Li Tianxian was calm as if he had long since expected this. Li Tianxian was extremely clear on the charisma a Heavendy Fire had. That kind of charisma was difficult to resist for men and women. As soon as Xia Chen had come, Li Tianxian had known that he wouldn't be able to leave. The next day, Xia Chen and Guoran excitedly ran over to Long Chen. Guoran shouted, "Boss, boss, we spent all night formulating some formations for the troops. It can increase the battle power of the Dragonblood Legion by over 10 times. 10 times? Long Chen almost jumped out of his chair. The Dragonblood warriors had already gone through the tempering of the Blood Soul Stone and the Blood Essence Stone. Their power had been raised to a terrifying level already. If their power was increased by another 10 times, wouldn't they be equivalent to Empyreans? Xia Chen nodded. With my formations plus Guoran's armor and weapons, if the two are made to complement each other, it will form a natural cycle of strengthening. 10 times is just an initial hypothesis. If we can reach the point where all 10,000 are one, the power that can be unleashed will be enough to shake heaven and earth. Xia Chen was confident and full of excitement. Formation cultivators didn't only have solo formations but also had formations for troops. Of course, Xia Chen had no troops under his command before this. Now that he had the most elite legion on the continent, the dream he had never been able to obtain had finally become reality. Just as Long Chen had said, Xia Chen greatly wished to join the Dragonblood Legion but didn't know how to. Long Chen's actions had given him a way to join without losing face. The Dragonblood Legion was the most suitable place for him in this world. Here, he would be able to show his greatest splendor. This is a good thing. What do you need from me? Asked Long Chen. Money. Xia Chen blushed, while Guoran was very direct. No problem. I can give some devil cores to Jing Wenlong and the money will flow in, said Long Chen. We can't. These devil cores are priceless treasures that we need. We can't sell them. Boss, you should go tell the Xian Master that the Sect's 5 billion spirit crystals should be given to us. I'll finish the construction of the Dao Sect's formation, and that will increase its power even more than what it would have been otherwise. It will also save some money, proposed Xia Chen. All right, I'll go mention it to the Xian Master. It would be best if the Dao Sect's construction progresses along with the Dragonblood Legion's upgrade. We aren't lacking money, we're lacking time. If you run out of money, just tell me and I'll think of something. Long Chen patted his chest confidently. Haha, do you see? This is our boss. We just have to do our own work. There's no need for us to bother with anything else. Guoran patted Xia Chen on the shoulder, laughing. Xia Chen was a bit emotional. Not needing to worry about money really feels good. I've had so many bitter days of being broke and lacking confidence. If it weren't for that, I'd have definitely gotten in the top 10 of the Devil's Slaughter rankings. However, fortunately I chose not to try, or I'd have gone bankrupt. Chen had always been a solitary figure. The materials for his formations had been purchased by himself, and they were very expensive. Although he had obtained some materials when he had gained his inheritance and had always been very meticulous with his formations, he had always been low on money. Now that he had found a big money bag called Long Chen, he felt how blessed the days when he didn't have to worry about money were. Speaking of which, other than to show off, are there any other benefits of getting into the top 10? Asked Duan suddenly. There are. I heard it's an amazing reward, which is why I tried to get into it, but my wallet couldn't handle the price. Chen shook his head. If he had had money, he was confident he could have gotten into the top 10. Who distributes that reward? Asked Long Chen. No wonder Chu Jianying had said that there would be another pleasant surprise. I'm not sure. It seems to relate to some kind of secret. All I know is that once the reward comes, the top 10 will instantly soar, said Chen. Long Chen nodded. Since that was the case, they just had to wait for the good news. Long Chen immediately went to talk to Li Tianxian. Li Tianxian naturally didn't refuse Chen's plan, so Long Chen arranged it. In truth, Long Chen could have directly taken this money. Li Tianxian had said that this money would belong to the Dragonblood Legion because the reward for heavily injuring the Corrupt Path's Devil Kings was enough to rebuild the sect. However, the reward for injuring the Corrupt Path would take some time to come, so Long Chen had been planning on using the spirit crystals to rebuild the sect first. Now that there was a formation Grandmaster present, there was no need to worry about it. They didn't even need to pay for outside labor. They only needed the Dao Sect's people to work together to finish it off. It was convenient and cheap. Chen changed some vital portions of the formation. The places that originally would have required spirit crystals to power had been switched with devil cores. These devil cores' most amazing point was that they were still alive in the sense that they continuously absorbed energy from the air that could be extracted to power the formation. Those ancient formations didn't have this ability and would instead require a huge amount of spirit crystals to function. Each time the formation was activated, it would cost a huge amount of spirit crystals. An ordinary sect wouldn't even be able to afford that cost. However, after being switched to devil cores, not only did that allow the formation to be activated to a certain level at all times, but any extra energy could be stored, saved for a real fight. It could also be converted to other kinds of energy. That was why these devil cores were such priceless treasures. Chen immediately began working with Duan. He spent half his time rebuilding the Dao sect, while the other half was spent refining the Dragonblood Legion's battle formation. He was also working with Duan to invent new armor and weapons that were connected to the formation, allowing the Dragonblood Legion to unleash even greater power. Although the two of them had come up with the basic principles, going from theoretical to practical required constant testing. It was a long and arduous process. Fortunately, both of them were shockingly talented in this regard, and both worked hard. The formation gradually took shape, and the Dragonblood warriors were drilling with them. They gradually began to feel just how powerful this formation was, exciting them. They were filled with anticipation for their future accomplishments. While the two of them were busily working, the news that the Xian Dao sect had obtained a 15 billion spirit crystal reward spread throughout the eastern Xian region. The fact that Long Chen had split that reward into 3 equal portions also spread. The entire region was shocked that he had given one portion to the heaven-splitting battle sect and one to the families of the dead as compensation. It had to be known that many sects only had a few hundred spirit crystals in total. Possessing a few million spirit crystals would make them a first-rate sect. As for the Xian Dao sect, it had instantly obtained 15 billion spirit crystals. Countless sects were jealous as well as regretful. They had listened to other people's enticement and decided not to participate in the Battle of the Devil Abyss, allowing the Xian Dao sect to devour the entire reward itself. How could they not be jealous? The heaven-splitting battle sect had only sent 3,000 people. None of them had died, but they had been given 5 billion spirit crystals. As a result, some people began to criticize Long Chen for his favoritism. The Shen Dao sect had lost tens of thousands of disciples, while the heaven-splitting battle sect hadn't even lost one, yet both sides were getting the same 5 billion spirit crystals. Wasn't he saying that the heaven-splitting battle sect's disciples were more valuable than the others? Some experts even began to instigate trouble with the families of the dead, telling them to come out and criticize the Shen Dao sect. Regretfully for them, those families ignored them. It wasn't as if they were fools. The current Shen Dao sect was an enormous existence that they couldn't do anything about. Furthermore, their compensation for the deceased disciples was already too generous. Although some people might be affected by some rumors and feel a bit of dissatisfaction, they were well aware of Long Chen's temper. Whoever dared to cause trouble for the Shen Dao sect would be wiped out without hesitation. He wouldn't mind reuniting them with their dead family members. Long Chen couldn't be bothered to explain those rumors. Li Tianxian also sent word that the Shen Dao sect was allied with the Heaven-Splitting Battle sect, and the Heaven-Splitting Battle sect would fight to the death for them. According to reason, the reward should have been split in 2 ways. The only reason it was split in 3 was because of their generosity to the families of the deceased. The compensation that the Shen Dao sect had paid out was definitely over 10 times what the other regions had given. If people didn't believe that, they could go check and confirm for themselves. With just that, those voices instigating trouble fell silent. Li Tianxuan's words were absolutely correct. Any dissatisfaction was only because they hadn't compared themselves with the other regions. As soon as they did, they realized how generous the Shen Dao sect had been. However, just as the first wave of rumors were placated, another piece of news caused new waves. Heavenly Fate Island had made a public announcement to the Martial Heaven continent. This announcement was sharply pointed at Long Chen. It criticized Long Chen for starting slanderous rumors toward Heavenly Fate Island, groundlessly accusing them of crimes that they hadn't done in order to ruin their reputation. In order to defend their reputation and dignity, Heavenly Fate Island demanded Long Chen to admit to his mistakes and retract what he had said. Otherwise, to protect their reputation, they would be forced to impose sanctions on him. It was an announcement that lacked any substance. This was just the natural move done by any party who knew the other side had no proof. All they had to do was refuse to admit to their own actions, and without proof, no one could do anything to them. The reason they made this announcement was because Long Chen had broadcast that Heavenly Fate Island had intentionally sabotaged him in the Devil Abyss. That news had caused large waves in the Martial Heaven continent. Long Chen's message on the Devil Slaughter rankings had been a challenge to Heavenly Fate Island. Considering that Long Chen was the one who had first accused Heavenly Fate Island and made their feud public, the majority of people believed that his challenge wasn't based on nothing. After all, if it weren't for a deep enmity, who would be willing to be enemies with Heavenly Fate Island? Heavenly Fate Island was an existence countless sects were afraid of. Now, Heavenly Fate Island had made their own voice heard, but the majority of people didn't believe it. This was just a standard response to such an accusation. Everyone had seen this kind of sequence countless times. In the face of Heavenly Fate Island's announcement, Long Chen's only reply was, "Just wait." He couldn't be bothered to play this game with them. Right now, he still didn't have the power to destroy them. However, he wouldn't just bottle his anger up inside. He had already expressed his anger, and when the time was ripe, they would have to face his rage. It just wasn't that time yet. Other than Xia Chen's arrival, another pleasant surprise to the Dragonblood Legion was that Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wana, Gu Yang, Song Mingyuan, and Li Qi had already felt a change in their heavenly Dao manifestations. Long Chen just stared blankly when he heard this news, but Li Tianxian went wild with joy. He told Long Chen that this was a sign that their manifestations had started to awaken. They should immediately go into seclusion. After experiencing this life and death battle, Meng Qi and the others' mental realms had risen greatly. They had never been as close to death as they had been this time, particularly when the corrupt experts had launched their suicidal attacks. Under that immense pressure of death and after the baptism of the blood soul stones, they had actually broken through a heavenly Dao bottleneck. Long Chen was also delighted when he realized what this meant and immediately told them to go into seclusion. Once their manifestations awoke, their combat power would rise to a new level. This was practically their biggest gain from the Devil Abyss. "Brother Long, I'm hungry. I want to go out." Just as Guoran and Xia Chen were busy working while the others went into seclusion, Wild suddenly came to find Long Chen. Long Chen jumped in fright when he saw Wild's current state. After just a few days, Wild had gotten even skinnier. He looked like he was skin and bones. That arm and leg from the Xian beast expert he had eaten had been used up just like that. "Okay, I'll accompany you and get you food. But before eating, come with me to a certain place." The Xin Tiandao sect was calm now. The formation was being completed perfectly thanks to Xia Chen. Meanwhile, the Dragonblood warriors were hard at work drilling their new battle formation, and Meng Qi and the others were in seclusion. Right now, there was nothing he needed to do here, so Long Chen wanted to take a trip to the eastern Xian city. After telling Li Tianxian, Long Chen and Wild got on a transportation formation that brought them to the eastern Xian city. Wild stayed in a flying boat, while Long Chen had changed his appearance. They stealthily found the stronghold of the original devil race. This was a place that Long Chen and Yue Xihan had agreed to meet. In the Devil Abyss, Yue Xihan had helped him before immediately vanishing. He had to go see her. "The sacred daughter has returned to the clan. She implored me to bring you to the skyscraping world as soon as you came." Within the secret stronghold was a life star elder of the original devil race. "Did something happen in the original devil race?" asked Long Chen solemnly. Last time, the seventh elder had been forced to leave hastily due to something happening. This time, Yue Xihan hadn't even had time to stay a few days. It sounded like something serious had happened. "Yes, it's an issue with the skyscraping world. Do you want to start going now and talk on the way?" Long Chen nodded, and with that elder, they began flying toward the martial heaven searing on a flying boat. On the way, the elder explained that the skyscraping world was a minor world, and now that the Great Era was descending, the martial heaven continent's world energy was squeezing it, causing cracks to appear in many parts of it. Those spatial cracks opened the path for demonic beasts to invade. The demonic beasts had started coming a year ago. The original devil race had sent blockades to the spatial cracks to kill the demonic beasts that came out. However, it wasn't that they were too strong, but that they came in an unending tide. As time passed, the spatial cracks grew larger, and stronger demonic beasts started to appear. There were now over 10 major spatial cracks in the skyscraping world. The largest one was over 1,000 miles long. Powerful demonic beasts were constantly pouring into the skyscraping world, forcing the original devil race to defend day and night. The majority of the original devil race's energy was being taken up by the demonic beasts. Even some of their experts that had been out on missions had been called back. "Are the demonic beasts very powerful?" asked Long Chen. "Their actual killing power isn't very great, but their numbers are too high, and there's no break to it. It has been over a year already, and it's exhausting. However, there's no easy solution," sighed the elder. Long Chen's eyes brightened. He looked behind him at the sleeping Wild. He smiled. "Perhaps my brother can resolve this problem of yours." The flying boat continued onward. Wild was still sleeping in the back. As there was nothing to eat, Wild stayed in this state to conserve energy. Other than being active and awake on the first day, Wild had been listless after waking up. Long Chen had examined his body and found that it was entering a similar state to when Long Chen had first met him. The majority of his cells were once more starting to fall into slumber, with only a small portion being active. In other words, putting it like how a human cultivated, Wild had advanced a whole level and was at the early stage of a new level. After advancing, Wild required even more meat than ever before. That Xian beast expert had been at the Nether Passage realm, but even an arm and a leg from him had only been enough to fuel Wild for a short while. The current Wild was a real monster. The flying boat quickly flew to the northeastern part of the searing. After a few days, the elder had Long Chen stop at a certain coordinate within the sea. It was a very unremarkable location. The elder took out an ancient bone talisman and made a stroke with it through the air. A resplendent light enveloped the flying boat. Long Chen felt the flying boat enter a current of space. The elder made another stroke through the air with the bone talisman, bringing the flying boat into a different current. Long Chen knew that this was an extremely complicated method of transportation. Even if others found the location without knowing the spatial nodes, they would never find the real entrance. This was 100% safe. After 9 times, a transportation formation appeared ahead in the air. This transportation formation was actually in the sky, completely out of Long Chen's expectations. He had thought that the final transportation formation would be at the bottom of the sea ring. Once they were there, Long Chen saw 4 more elders sitting cross-legged in the air like 4 statues. They only opened their eyes when the flying boat approached. The devil character appeared in their eyes. These 4 elders might only be at the Life Star realm, but the pressure they exuded was startling. Long Chen's flying boat had its own defenses, but their eyes seemed to be able to see through anything. After looking at the flying boat, the 4 of them formed hand seals, causing the transportation formation's runes to light up. It formed a channel, and Long Chen's flying boat was drawn out of his control. The flying boat shuddered. The world in front of Long Chen's eyes changed. He felt an aura that was completely different from the martial heaven continent. This was a barren land with unending mountains and no tall trees, only some short vegetation. Most places were covered in bare rock. Those rocks looked like they had experienced many years. The aura of powerful experts still lingered on them. There were even some faint red marks. It seemed that the blood of experts had seeped into these rocks. The skyscraping world was originally a sacred and holy land, but after experiencing countless battles, it's gained its current appearance, said the elder sadly. Why has our original devil race become the target of all the martial heaven continent's experts? Long Chen had wanted to ask this many times on the way here, but he had endured. Seeing the scene in front of him, he could no longer hold back his curiosity. He knew that this was most likely the original devil race's greatest secret. There had never been a good time for him to ask, but when Yue Xihan had helped him annihilate those Empyrean winged blood devils, he had thought of a certain possibility. You should personally ask the sacred daughter this question. The story's too long, and having an old man like me tell it would make it sound tedious. The elder smiled faintly. His eyes contained a different kind of meaning. The flying boat continued onward. The remnant pressure lingering on the ground grew stronger, and countless gorges appeared in the ground. Along the dark red rocks, it was like everything was shouting that this had once been a battlefield. After half a day, they finally arrived at a giant gate. This gate was so tall that it reached the clouds. A giant devil character was carved into the top of it. That devil character shone with divine light. It was like it was the mark of a god. In front of the giant gate was a beautiful woman, waiting with a smile. Long Chen also smiled. He finally got to see Yue Xihan again. Today, Yue Xihan wasn't wearing a veil. Standing there, she was surpassingly beautiful as she watched Long Chen's flying boat approaching her. When Long Chen walked out, the elder had wisely left. Only Long Chen and Yue Xihan remained standing in front of the gate. Their eyes locked, calmly looking at one another. After parting in the eastern wasteland, they hadn't seen each other for several years. Although Yue Xihan had appeared for a moment in the last battle, she had only been there for a moment. He missed you. Long Chen opened his mouth several times, in the end only capable of forcing out a few words. Yue Xihan's smile deepened. Her eyes turned into crescent moons, and those crescent moons had beautiful dewdrops inside them. Let's go. I'll bring you to my mom. Yue Xihan blushed slightly, but she still brazenly held Long Chen's hand, unable to conceal her delight. Ah, can you get someone to look after the flying boat? Wild is still sleeping inside. Long Chen pointed to the flying boat with a smile. He didn't want to wake Wild up for nothing. Once he woke up, he would be using up even more energy and feeling incredibly hungry. To Wild, hunger was a kind of torment. Don't worry, within the skyscraping world, everything is safe, said Yue Xihan. Holding hands, Long Chen and Yue Xihan slowly walked through the gates. Once he was through, Long Chen saw 7 colored clouds and mist flowing through the air. Long Chen, You really are the original devil race's lucky star. Look, even the skyscraping world's clouds are welcoming you. Yue Xihan smiled brightly. I feel like you're my lucky star. As long as you're by my side, I feel at peace. Long Chen greatly admired how erudite Yue Xihan was. It was like she knew about everything. With her present, there would be no unsolvable puzzles. Yue Xihan reddened even more. Her grip on his hand tightened. Was my daughter tricked out of her heart just like this at the start? Just at this moment, the clouds and mist parted, and a teasing voice rang out. A beautiful woman in her 30s appeared. Her hair was wrapped into a high bun, and there was a violet gold devil character on her forehead. She held a wooden staff in her hands. Long Chen jumped in shock upon seeing her. He hadn't sensed any aura. However, looking at her, he felt an innate nobility, as if anyone would have to be ashamed of their own inferiority to stand by her, as if just looking at her was blasphemy. He felt a godlike air around her, as if the world's laws were prostrating themselves toward her. This was a feeling that Long Chen had never felt before. Without her aura or any pressure, she made people feel an urge to prostrate themselves toward her in worship. She was definitely an extremely powerful existence. He had only felt something similar from the high priest, but this woman's aura was even more special, with an immortal air to it. Mom! Yue Xihan blushed, as red as an apple. She lowered her head, incapable of looking at Long Chen. Long Chen knew that this powerful expert in front of him was Yue Xian's mother. She was also the leader of the original devil race. However, even someone as grand as her didn't throw him off. He bowed. This junior greets senior. Senior's vision is omniscient. I precisely use this mouth of mine to con people so I can eat. However, when it comes to Xiaoqian, your words are only half right. I still haven't managed to win Xiaoqian's heart, but don't worry, I will definitely do my best. The woman laughed. What a shameless fellow. You can actually say such a thing without a hint of embarrassment. Although Yue Xihan and her mother looked somewhat similar, there were still differences between them. Her mother's beauty was one of nobility, one that was tranquil yet still invoked respect. As for Yue Xihan, her beauty was one that could steal a person's soul just by looking at her. Long Chen had felt that his soul was being drawn away the first time he had seen her. That kind of beauty was very dangerous. It could easily consume a person, making it so that they couldn't extricate themselves. Just like Meng Qi, Yue Xihan was as beautiful as a celestial immortal, but the latter possessed a kind of soul-charming nature. Yue Xihan was as red as an apple, but she was still holding Long Chen's hand. Senior overpraises me. I only have this little bit of ability. Long Chen smiled mischievously. If you weren't shameless, just how could you pick up girls? To pursue a beauty required a thick enough skin. The woman nodded slightly. Putting away her smile, she suddenly became a bit grave. Long Chen, if I entrust Xiaoqian to you, are you willing to look after her for a lifetime? I am willing. If anyone tries to hurt her, they'll have to step over my corpse, promised Long Chen. Although he and Yue Xihan had never explicitly shared their feelings for each other, they each knew the other's heart. Long Chen naturally wouldn't be ambiguous at such a thing. This was what he thought in his heart, and this was what he said with his mouth. Yue Xihan had been expecting such an answer, but hearing Long Chen personally say it still made her emotional. Back in the Jiuli secret realm, when they had just met, Long Chen had stood between her and the skeleton of the barbarian race expert that they couldn't possibly defeat. At that time, Long Chen had already left a seed in her heart. It was because of this seed that Yue Xian's tender heart had been occupied by this man. In the immemorial path, during her tribulation, she had been implicated by 4 mysterious experts and almost killed by her lightning tribulation. Long Chen had furiously counterattacked, becoming enemies with the very heavens and tearing through their dome. That act had completely won her heart. Even if you have to become enemies with the entire world to be with Xiaoqian? Asked the woman profoundly. Long Chen suddenly smiled. Even if it weren't for Xiaoqian, I am already surrounded by enemies. Nowadays, a few more enemies don't mean much to me. This smile was a bit bitter and helpless, but it was also grand. So what if he was surrounded by enemies? He had this one life. He would fight with it. Yue Xihan's mother nodded. She praised, perhaps in this world, only an heir of the 9 stars could say something so grand and domineering. Suddenly, the space behind Yue Xihan's mother surged, and countless experts appeared behind her. They actually numbered in the millions. I am Yue Xihan. I command all warriors of the original devil race to pay respect to the heir of the 9 stars. Yue Xihan's mother solemnly bowed toward Long Chen. As for all the original devil race's experts behind her, they all went on one knee, their hands collapsed in front of their chests. Even Yue Xihan went down on one knee, her expression serious. Senior, Long Chen panicked, not knowing what this was. Yue Xihan's mother slowly got up after completing the rite. The others also stood. Don't call me senior in the future. You can call me Aunt Han. Actually, the original devil race was originally your family. Yue Xihan smiled emotionally. Well, we'll be one family in the future, but how are we originally one family? Asked Long Chen. Because the original devil race has a close connection with the 9-star line, said Yue Xihan. Then, do you know the secrets of the 9 stars? I know a bit, but I can't tell you, so you don't have to ask. Actually, there's no need for you to ask. The karma involved in this is far too terrifying, to the point that no one can endure it. Consider this. My original devil race is hunted down by the entire world. As for you, Long Chen, for just Xiaoqian, you are willing to trust us without any hesitation. Do you not find it curious? Long Chen was silent for a moment. It really is a bit curious. Back when I learned Xiaoqian was from the original devil race, despite knowing it is a taboo, my intuition told me I could trust her. Are you saying? That's why we are one family. From the moment Xiaoqian returned from the Juli's secret realm, I knew about you. I didn't let Xiaoqian go find you afterward because we didn't want to hold up your growth, but then a problem occurred in Xiaoqian's cultivation. A random girl who snuck into the Eastern Wasteland's pill tower to find medicine actually ended up encountering you. At that time, I knew the relationship between the two of you was fated, so I no longer blocked you from having dealings with the original devil race. The facts show that you are the savior of the original devil race. Your arrival has ushered in a new era for us, said Yue Xihan. Long Chen had given them heavenly Dao fruits, which had allowed the original devil race to enter the martial heaven continent without worry about being discovered. They had then started to obtain the continent's resources, as their own resources had almost been exhausted. Therefore, Long Chen had been the crux that had revived the original devil race from the brink of death. Do you know what this represents? Yue Xihan pointed to the resplendent violet gold devil character on her forehead. Devil. This character should be malevolent and sinister, one that invoked hatred and fear. However, when it was present on the original devil race's people, it seemed grand, righteous, and imposing instead. This devil is actually a divine seal. It is also a mark of glory, as well as a symbol of things done and things to be done. The divine seal of the original devil race is what allows us to unleash our divine power. All ordinary devil races will be suppressed by it. This is why Yue Xihan was able to help you suppress those Empyrean winged blood devils. Now do you understand? Yue Xihan's voice contained immense confidence and pride in what she said. The sacred light of the mark on her head covered her. This divine mark was the greatest honor of the original devil race. Long Chen's heart pounded wildly. A mark of honor? Capable of suppressing all devils? Putting it like that, the original devil race was not a devil race, but a race to suppress the devil races. Are you curious? Our original devil race once suppressed the invaders. We once protected the martial heaven continent and its peace. Why would the continent's people suddenly start hunting us? Yue Xihan looked at Long Chen and sighed. Long Chen nodded. He was truly unable to comprehend this. The martial heaven alliance and the devil races were mortal enemies. Based on the principles of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, they should be allied with the original devil race, but instead, they hunted the original devil race down. I truly wish to tell you. However, now is still not the time. Furthermore, since you trust us so much, whether or not you know it won't change anything, said Yue Xihan. Long Chen could only nod again. If Yue Xihan didn't want to say, he wouldn't continue asking. Even since returning from purgatory, he had felt the ephemeral existence known as karma more strongly. Some things were forbidden by the heavenly Daos, and speaking of them would bring frightening consequences. Suddenly, furious roars came from the distance, and the ground began to shake. The original devil race's experts' expressions changed. The beast tide is erupting again. Everyone, get into position, shouted Yue Xihan. Long Chen and the others flew over. Long Chen saw over 10 giant spatial cracks in front of them. Some of them were only a few miles long, while the largest was 1,000 miles. Endless magical beasts were boring out of those cracks, their roars shaking the sky. 10th tier magical beasts? And even 11th rank ones? Long Chen was amazed by what he saw. The original devil race experts were used to it though, and they raised their weapons. However, there were far too many magical beasts. They were practically endless. Wild, wake up! Long Chen was both startled and delighted to see these magical beasts. He immediately woke Wild up. When Wild saw the sea of magical beasts, his eyes became like those of a hungry wolf. An 11th rank magical beast was instantly smashed through the head, and its body exploded into bloody mist. A powerful shockwave spread and annihilated all the surrounding magical beasts. This is the power of the blood barbarian race. Wasn't that race annihilated a long time ago? Yue Xihan was shocked upon seeing Wild attack. Wild's attack also caused Long Chen to jump. The power of Wild's physical body was so terrifying. It was comparable to the attack of a divine item. Wild, go lighter or you won't have anything to eat. Wild was just standing there foolishly, blankly staring at the bloody mist in the air. Long Chen had no choice but to give him a reminder. Wild might have grown more powerful, but his head was still as slow as before. It seemed he still didn't understand what had just happened. Wild didn't seem to understand how his body had changed after his awakening. After Long Chen's reminder, Wild seemed to react and try to hold back. However, the 11th rank magical beasts in front of him were still blown apart by each of his attacks. He killed several 11th rank magical beasts without obtaining a single complete corpse. Wild was infuriated. He suddenly opened his mouth and breathed in like a whale absorbing water. A large whirlpool appeared in the air, sucking up the bloody mist. Wild repeatedly attacked and inhaled, blowing up magical beasts and absorbing their blood. That appearance was a bit frightening. Wild, aim for the ones with darker red bodies and stronger spatial fluctuations. Those are peak 11th rank magical beasts, shouted Long Chen. If Wild continued like this, he would be using up more energy than he consumed. It wouldn't be long before he would collapse and feel even hungrier. From the start, Long Chen had noticed that the magical beasts with dark red bodies had more powerful auras. Those were peak 11th rank magical beasts. Just by appearances, early, mid, late, and peak stage magical beasts were very difficult to tell apart. It was their auras that made it easier for people to differentiate. However, Wild didn't even know what an aura was, so Long Chen had taught him to recognize color and spatial fluctuations. Listening to his instructions, Wild began to target the strongest peak 11th rank magical beasts. Finally, a giant python's head was blown apart by Wild's fist, but its body was strong enough to survive after its head exploded. With a complete body, Wild delightedly took out a silver bowl. The bowl's runes lit up and sucked the giant python's body into it. This bowl was something Guoran had forged for Wild. Guoran had specially arranged it so that as long as Wild aimed the bowl at a magical beast's corpse, it would be automatically sucked in. The huge python was as small as a loach in the bowl. Wild gulped it down in one bite and went after other strong magical beasts. With Wild targeting the strongest magical beasts, the other magical beasts also had a bad time. Each of his punches caused powerful shockwaves that blew them apart. Suddenly, an angry roar rang out from within the spatial crack. A blood-colored lion came out. Its body was several times larger than the other 11th rank magical beasts. The other magical beasts actually quivered and fled from it. A half-step nether passage magical beast. Long Chen was startled. This lion's aura was shocking and already starting to reach the 12th rank. Once it successfully advanced, it would be comparable to nether passage experts. However, this half-step nether passage lion was now covered in fresh wounds. Blood was still gushing out of them. Looking from the half-step nether passage lion to the spatial crack, Long Chen instantly understood that the spatial crack would not allow magical beasts of this level to pass. This lion had to have forced its way through, causing it to be badly injured. Seeing that lion, Wild roared and charged at it. Boom! The lion's mountain-sized claw smashed toward Wild. The ground was blown apart, and powerful chi waves slaughtered the surrounding magical beasts. However, the half-step nether passage lion let out an angry roar after its attack landed. It pulled up its claw, which was now covered in blood. Wild's body had transformed. He was now a 300-meter-tall giant. He had grabbed hold of the claw and was crazily biting it, tearing away its hard exterior, flesh and bones all at once. The lion roared and flung Wild away. However, Wild shot after it again, clamping down on its throat and taking a big bite. Wild's mouth was now giant considering his size. His bloody teeth had a cold sparkle to them as he bit down. The half-step nether passage lion had huge chunks of its flesh ripped out by Wild over and over again. Even its tough defenses were completely useless against Wild's sharp teeth. It was like he was biting into meat buns. How terrifying. How savage. The original Devil Race's experts were all stunned. This kind of battle scene had surpassed their imaginations. The Blood Barbarians are truly worthy of being the emperors amongst the barbarian race. This kind of power is unimaginable. Even Yue Xihan sighed emotionally upon seeing that the half-step nether passage lion was unable to shake Wild off at all as he tore into its flesh. "Senior, how much do you know about the barbarian race?" asked Long Chen. He was very curious about Wild's origins. "I don't know much. The barbarian race is extremely powerful and very terrifying. They're called the wildest warriors of the 10 planar worlds. They don't need to cultivate, they just eat. Other than humans, they eat anything and they're split into 77 different races, including the Power Barbarians, Spirit Barbarians, Bone Barbarians, Walking Barbarians, and more. However, it is the Blood Barbarians that possess the most terrifying bloodline and the most terrifying combat power. They lead the barbarian race. As for Wild, he is a Blood Barbarian and is in his second blood morph. It seems his blood chi is still very lacking, so his transformation isn't complete. There are many innate divine abilities that he has yet to awaken, explained Yue Xihan. Just as Yue Xihan was explaining, Wild had already bitten the half-step nether passage lion to death and was now finishing up its body. The Blood Barbarians' devouring and biting abilities are innate. Their teeth become stronger with each transformation. Even divine items can be shattered with a bite, said Yue Xihan. This kind of talent was frightening. They essentially grew a mouthful of divine items in the form of teeth. After finishing off the lion, Wild suddenly let out an excited cry and charged toward the largest spatial crack. As Wild charged through the spatial crack, it rumbled and shook. Spatial blades exploded out of it. This spatial crack was like a flowing river. Going from the other side to this world was following the flow, but now Wild was going against the current. It was similar to how Guoran had been kicked through the spatial channel before. He needed to endure extreme spatial pressure. Back then, even Guoran's armor had been deformed. However, as Wild charged through, those powerful spatial blades all bounced off his skin, unable to cause the slightest harm to him. Just relying on his physical body, Wild charged through the spatial blades. Wild's physical body had to be even stronger than Guoran's armor. Boom! With a final intense shudder, Wild managed to charge into the other world. His figure vanished from sight. Once he was in the other world, the magical beasts charging out of the spatial cracks dropped in number. It could be imagined how Wild had drawn all those magical beasts' attacks. However, Long Chen wasn't concerned about Wild's safety at all. Tossing Wild into a sea of magical beasts was like tossing a tiger amongst rabbits. Those magical beasts weren't able to cause any real injuries to him. Furthermore, as he continued to eat, his power would grow. Perhaps Wild would be able to obtain enough energy to fully satisfy his second form. Starfall. With Wild gone, Long Chen tossed out a ball that exploded amongst the magical beasts. Golden flames devoured them. The magical beasts on the battlefield were cleaned up in an instant. The warriors of the original devil race didn't have to face any more pressure. Aunt Han, are these magical beasts useful to our original devil race? Asked Long Chen. With Yue Xihan's power, she was more than capable of annihilating these magical beasts with a wave of her hand. In fact, he estimated that her power was more than enough to seal some of these spatial cracks. Sometimes just words had the magical effect of drawing two people together quicker. Long Chen's words made it sound like they were already one family. Yue Xihan nodded. In truth, these small spatial cracks were opened by me. Long Chen was startled, not understanding why she would do this. It sounded like she had been bored and looking for trouble. Yue Xihan looked at Long Chen emotionally. She continued, our original devil race has been hunted down by the continent for so many years. We were unable to replenish many of the resources that we used up, and we've long since lost our former glory. But with your help, we are finally able to walk on the continent again and do business. We're starting to get many resources that we lacked. However, rejuvenating the race requires a baptism of blood and fire, or even if we're stronger, we would still just be stronger prey. So this is tempering for them. I calculated the spatial nodes and tore open the space to allow these magical beasts to invade, using them to temper the geniuses of the original devil race. Although they are very talented, without experiencing true life and death battles, their true combat power will always be limited. It's just that I didn't expect that after I opened a few cracks, suddenly they combined into one giant crack. The cracks I opened were originally perfect and would have only allowed early 11th rank magical beasts through. Any stronger ones coming would cause the spatial channel to react and unleash spatial blades to kill them before they could pass. It was a safe and convenient way of training, but this giant spatial crack was not within my expectations. Now Long Chen understood. Any race needed a powerful enemy to train themselves with. The martial heaven continent might be their enemy, but they still didn't have the power to fight back. Without any fighting, even geniuses would rot into trash. They would never become true warriors. Yue Xihan's decision was the right one, but many things in this world never went according to plan. Fortunately, this current situation was still within her control. Since Yue Xihan was capable of opening these cracks, she should be capable of closing them as well. This was an even faster way to temper their junior generation. It was to make them feel a sense of crisis, like they were needed to protect their home. Long Chen saw that the warriors fighting were at the soul transformation realm and below. The Life Star Elders would only go help during dangerous times. They were there just to make sure there wasn't anything unexpected that caused huge casualties. Just now, because of the sudden surge of magical beasts, with a particularly large number of 11th rank magical beasts, even the elders had been having some trouble handling them. Fortunately, Long Chen and Wild had resolved that. Seeing that Long Chen was capable of annihilating these powerful magical beasts with just a wave of his hand, the original devil race's experts were stunned. Although they had long since heard of Long Chen, for many of them, it was their first time seeing him. This casual attack of his had won him their profound respect. Although they were also in the soul transformation realm, Long Chen's combat power could only be described as monstrous. He could kill such powerful existences without batting an eye, as if it was an incredibly minor thing. Xiaoqian, why don't you take Long Chen to the ancestral lands for a stroll? Seeing that the current situation was handled, Yue Xihan turned to Yue Xiaoqian. Yue Xiaoqian nodded, and then she suddenly blushed. Right in front of Yue Xihan, she brazenly held Long Chen's hand. The two of them left, leaving Yue Xihan with only a faint smile. She didn't say anything. The two of them progressed deeper into the skyscraping world. Long Chen hadn't expected the skyscraping world to be so marvelous. It was like the spirit world. However, a large part of it was now a barren wasteland. Yue Xihan explained that there had once been a terrible battle, a battle strong enough to influence the laws of this world. The vitality in those barren wastelands had been stripped away, and their situation had been extremely bleak, especially with the inability to get more resources from the martial heaven continent. Originally, the skyscraping world was a sacred land. Based on the historical murals, it was filled with beautiful ancient forests and wonderful sights. Unfortunately, all of that was destroyed in battle. Battle really is the most frightening thing. No matter what you have, battle will mercilessly strip it from you. Your resources, your wealth, your inheritance, and even your life. That's why I hate battle. Yue Xihan suddenly stopped. She held Long Chen, resting her head on his chest. For some reason, she began to cry. I'm afraid that one day, battle will also take you from me. I'm very afraid. Yue Xihan tightly held onto Long Chen. Long Chen immediately understood that she knew of his battles during these years. He had been constantly fighting, going through constant danger. She was afraid he would die. Long Chen was extremely moved. Just this simple, I'm very afraid, was superior to millions of oaths of eternal love. In this chaotic world, nothing was eternal. No one knew if they would live to see the sun set the next day. No one knew the future. Battle was that cruel. A bright smile could die in an instant. This was something everyone was helpless about. The majority of people were peaceful, but those who wanted peace were weaker, targets to be preyed on. So when the weak asked for peace, it was a joke. If they really wanted peace, they had to get stronger so that they could protect everything they wanted to protect. Long Chen also disliked battle, but he had to fight. He had to stand with his blade, becoming a demon king. Long Chen held Yue Xihan tightly and rubbed her cheek. He gave her a soft kiss on the forehead. Don't be afraid. I promise, no one will be able to take me from you, not even a death god, not even the heavens. Yue Xihan trembled, her face growing even redder. She didn't dare to look up at him, so she just held him tightly, listening to his powerful heartbeat. The sound made her feel safe. It was like with him present, even if the sky collapsed, he would hold it up for her. After a while, Yue Xihan finally raised her head. She had finished crying, but she still had some tears left on her face. Those tears were like pearls trickling down white jade. Xihan, you're beautiful. Unable to control himself upon seeing this beautiful, charming face, Long Chen held Yue Xihan as his fiery lips met her wet ones. Yue Xian's body shuddered. Her arms tightly held Long Chen's waist as they immersed themselves in that feeling. Eventually, the two of them slowly parted. Yue Xihan still had wet marks on her face, and she didn't dare to look at Long Chen's fiery gaze. Instead, she plastered her face into Long Chen's sturdy chest, feeling his wild heartbeat. Her heart was doing the same. It's like a drum. Yue Xihan suddenly smiled. Long Chen's heartbeat really was like a drum. It's like a honey peach. Long Chen also made a comparison. What? Yue Xihan looked at him in confusion. Long Chen wriggled his eyebrows at her and licked his lips. Fragrant and delicious. Scoundrel. Yue Xihan couldn't help lightly hitting him a few times for that joke, making Long Chen laugh. Stop. Otherwise, I'll tell my mom you bullied me. That's just what I was looking for. If she knew, would she immediately urge us to finish our marriage vows? That's a nice dream. If an outsider wants to marry one of the original devil race's women, they need the approval of Mixahuia, our god. Then they'll need to accomplish 3 missions and get the approval of the entire race. Furthermore, the original devil's race inheritance is matriarchal. Doesn't that mean our children would have my surname? Yue Xihan laughed. Xihan, aren't we one family? What do you think about reversing this sequence? What sequence? What I mean is, let's make it simpler. Let's first have children before dealing with the rest. Scoundrel! You wish. Yue Xihan ran away. Long Chen's words were too roguish. Long Chen laughed and caught up to her. Holding hands, the two of them continued onward. Xihan, I thought you knew how to read minds? It seems you can no longer read mine, said Long Chen. Back in the Jioli's secret realm when he had first encountered her, Yue Xihan seemed to be able to read all his thoughts. I told you that it wasn't a mind-reading art. It was just guessing a person's thought process based on their spiritual fluctuations, heartbeat, eyes, aura, blood flow, movements, etc. It's only useful against strangers. My mom taught it to me back then so I wouldn't get tricked by strangers. Now that we're already this familiar with each other, it's useless. Yue Xihan glared at Long Chen. Long Chen was delighted to hear that. Then wouldn't he be able to continue teasing other beauties without worry? He walked alongside her, feeling her warm hand and smelling her scent. He felt relaxed and content. Long Chen, don't you feel tired from fighting and killing all day in the martial heaven continent? Aren't you sick of it? I am sick of it. I got sick of it a long time ago. There are so many idiots who have had water get into their brains. They buzz around me like house flies all day. As for being tired, it's not that bad. When I think about it, all my efforts are so the people I love will feel happier and safer. Yue Xiaoqian's hand tightened around Long Chen's. Leaning against him, she felt like he was the one who made her feel safest in this world. Two huge mountains appeared as they were walking. They formed a natural gate. Here, Yue Xiaoqian let go of Long Chen's hand and her expression grew solemn. This is the ancestral land. Follow me. Yue Xiaoqian and Long Chen passed through the two mountains. After a dozen miles, they reached a giant palace. It was an ancient palace, one that was grand and imposing. Although some areas were damaged and some looked like they had been patched, that did not hide its sacred air. Inside the palace was a statue 297 meters tall. It looked as if it had been made using bright jade. Its expression was vivid, and it looked like a real person. The statue was of a woman sitting cross-legged. She looked to be in her 30s and had a faint smile. A devil character could be seen on her forehead. It was rainbow-colored and flowing with divine light. This is the original devil ancestor. Yue Xiaoqian respectfully knelt down and paid respect to the statue. The etiquette she used was one of worship and offering sacrifice to an ancestor. In the cultivation world, many times when people offered sacrifices to their ancestors, they were actually offering sacrifices to their heroic spirits, using their devout faith energy to preserve those spirits so that they could protect their descendants. In the secular world, there was a similar ritual, but it was simpler. They offered sacrifices to their ancestors as a reminder to themselves of how they had ended up in this world. Without their ancestors, they wouldn't exist, so this was a form of thanks. Of course, in the secular world, there were no heroic spirits remaining. That was why many cultivators turned their noses up at this secular rite, not realizing that they were the ones that had forgotten their roots. This woman was Yue Xiaoqian's ancestor. Sooner or later, Yue Xiaoqian would be Long Chen's wife, so this person could also count as Long Chen's elder. Hence, Long Chen also followed along with Yue Xiaoqian's etiquette. However, he had just moved when Yue Xiaoqian's expression completely changed and she grabbed onto him, preventing him from moving. Her face was pale. What is it? Long Chen also jumped in fright. Long Chen, you have to remember, as the heir of the 9 stars, no one is qualified to receive your kowtow other than your parents and closest family. Even heaven and earth, even gods are not qualified. If you did kneel to them, the heavens would crash, and the earth would wither. Even gods would fall. Yue Xiaoqian's frightened expression had yet to fade even though she had managed to stop Long Chen in time. Is the heir of the 9 stars so amazing? Long Chen, none of us can divulge too much about the secrets of the 9 stars. The more we tell you, the worse it will be for you. It would be harming you. But you need to understand that the heir of the 9 stars is the most respected existence in the world. You cannot lower your head to anyone, not even heaven or earth. Perhaps you've already sensed some clues. You are not accepted by the heavens because boom. Suddenly, divine pressure and angry light exploded out of the ancestral statue, interrupting Yue Xiaoqian's words. Ancestor, please calm your rage. I know I was wrong. Yue Xiaoqian hastily knelt toward the statue again. Once she admitted her fault, the divine pressure and light faded. It seemed that it had been a warning. Long Chen, many things about you are taboo, so don't blame the ancestor. She is doing this for you. Yue Xihan saw that Long Chen's expression was a bit angry, and she knew it was because he was feeling resentful toward the statue for scaring her, so she hastily explained. Long Chen felt a bit better from that explanation. In his heart, Yue Xihan was already his woman, and he wouldn't let her suffer. Yue Xihan began to pull Long Chen away. In the end, Long Chen only cupped his fists toward the statue. After all, it was still Yue Xian's ancestor. Once they were past the statue, they entered a long corridor. The two sides of the corridor were filled with ancient murals. Many of them were motley, and some places had been damaged too badly to be understood. However, nothing had been repaired at all. They were still in their original form. These murals were carved by the ancestors of my race. However, so much time has passed, and it's unknown just how many wars the skyscraping world has gone through. This is the place enemies wanted to destroy, so some places are already incomplete. The material used to create these carvings is very precious, and the ancestors' wills and divine charm are still present within them. With our current level, it's impossible to restore them, so we don't even dare to try, sighed Yue Xihan. Her voice contained respect for those ancestors, as well as sadness for the original devil race's decline. Things decline and prosper. When things get so bad that they can't get any worse, they can only get better, comforted Long Chen. He knew that Yue Xihan was actually carrying just as many things on her back as he was. Having a powerful sense of responsibility, she wanted to help the original devil race to escape its current predicament. That was immense pressure. In truth, there were quite a few areas where Long Chen and Yue Xihan had things in common. That made Long Chen understand the hardships she was under and feel more love for her. Although he had more things on his back, he felt that as a man he had to face those things. These difficulties, they were a whetstone to temper himself on. As long as he used them well, they would become his stepping stones to grow. Xiaoqian, don't worry, I will help you carry this burden. Trust me. Yes. Xiaoqian smiled happily. Now she had someone she could rely on. Furthermore, Long Chen's shoulder always made her feel at peace. They continued onward through the corridor. Suddenly, Long Chen paused as he saw a shocking scene. The murals here were mostly of scenes of the original devil race fighting against the devil creatures. There were all kinds of devil creatures depicted in the murals. The number of different creatures shown numbered in the tens of thousands. Some were as large as mountains, while some were as tiny as flies. There were mountains of corpses depicted. Some were the devil creatures, while some were warriors from the original devil race. It was a bloody and cruel sight. They quickly reached the end of the corridor, and there, Long Chen saw a scene that made his heart shake. It was a giant mural, with millions of the original devil race's experts kneeling on the ground. Their leader was a beautiful woman, also kneeling, her hands crossed before her. She was looking up, her expression sacred. A brush was pressed against her forehead, leaving behind a 7-colored divine rune. That divine rune was the devil character. Long Chen instantly understood that this devil character, this divine rune, was not innate to the original devil race. It was something that had been bestowed upon them. What was truly shocking, though, was that the person holding the brush had 9 stars behind him. The 9 stars were unleashing brilliant divine light, and even through the mural, Long Chen felt a terrifying pressure that transcended through time. Regretfully, the divine light was too bright, it was blinding. Those 9 stars were like blazing suns, and their light drowned out the appearance of that person. Long Chen could only see a single hand through that light. The hand was also covered in divine light and difficult to see clearly. It was hard to even say whether it belonged to a man or a woman. Upon looking at those 9 stars, Long Chen's aura began to slowly rise. The 9-star He-Gem body art began to circulate on its own. Long Chen closed his eyes and felt a kind of summons. Perhaps he would be able to learn some secrets relating to the 9 stars. Regretfully, when he opened his eyes, that feeling of being summoned had vanished. The 9 stars in the mural were the same, and he felt a resonance, but all he had was a close feeling with them, a feeling like coming from the same source. He couldn't help being disappointed. He knew too little about the 9 stars. That made him lack confidence. Who is this person? Can you say? Asked Long Chen. Yue Xihan merely shook her head. Long Chen nodded. Many things were forbidden. But looking at this mural, it seemed the original devil race's divine mark had been bestowed to them by this person. He examined the person. The 9 stars revolving around them threw the laws of heaven and earth into chaos. They were so powerful that they could penetrate the cosmos. It was as if all things had to bow down before them. Although it was just a mural and the leftover artistic will was from the original devil race's experts, Long Chen still felt that compared to the entire cosmos, he was an incredibly insignificant speck of dust. The two of them were in different dimensions, and it was impossible to compare their power. Is this the realm that is obtained when all 9 stars are activated? Long Chen sighed. Without seeing the real thing, he couldn't learn anything. The 9 stars were too brilliant. This was just a mural. Hence, Long Chen only felt a slight feeling but was unable to understand anything from it. The divine seal, the devil character, was awarded to us by a supreme existence. It is an immense honor as well as an immense responsibility. After countless years of fighting against the devil race, our divine seal has a great suppressive effect against them. That's why I could help you suppress those Empyrean winged blood devils. However, I'm too weak, and using my divine seal on such a scale exhausts all my energy. I can only keep it up for a short moment. If it had been my mom instead, then with just her divine seal, she could have annihilated all those Empyrean winged blood devils in an instant. Yue Xihan smiled proudly when she spoke of her mother. Clearly, she worshipped her mother. But then, why didn't anyone use their divine seals against the magical beasts just now? Did you not permit them to use it for training purposes? Asked Long Chen. Yue Xihan shook her head. No. Magical beasts are not part of the devil race. Their bloodlines are completely different, so magical beasts are not suppressed by our divine seal. Let's keep going. The 10,000 devil blood pool is up ahead. The two of them walked down a twisting stone path that wound around the mountains. In a region where 9 mountains formed a circle, there was a blood-colored pool. This pool was as flat as a mirror, and there wasn't the slightest ripple on it. However, Long Chen felt an immense amount of energy within it. This is the 10,000 devil blood pool. It is where our original devil race trains. Do you want to try it? Yue Xihan smiled. How do I try it? Asked Long Chen. This pool was created using the essence blood of 10,000 devils. Through the formation inside, it can duplicate a person. That person will have the exact same combat power, techniques, and cultivation base as you. In other words, you will be fighting yourself. It's a very tough trial. It took me 3 tries to pass it, but it can really stimulate a person's potential, said Yue Xihan. Long Chen shook his head. Then never mind. I already went through such a trial in the immemorial path. It's useless for me. In the immemorial path, he had ended up in a mysterious underground trial. It was extremely terrifying. That trial had created a version of himself that was just slightly stronger than him in every single way. However, the formation in the trial was unable to duplicate the 9-star Hegemon body art. In the end, he defeated it and met the Eastern Wasteland Belle. This blood pool was similar to that trial, but there was no danger of dying here. It really was a good place to train. If he could bring the Dragonblood warriors to try this, he thought it would be very beneficial. Yue Xihan didn't force him to try it. Although she had been looking forward to seeing that kind of immense battle, it wasn't that important. They passed the blood pool and could see a giant altar ahead of them. Here, countless divine runes were circulating all over the place, making them feel like they were at the bottom of a sea. This is the Skyscraping divine altar, the most sacred place for our original devil race. It is what maintains the Skyscraping world's karmic luck, similar to the divine pools in the sects of the martial heaven continent. Long Chen nodded. It seemed that this place was the core of the original devil race. It was no wonder there were so many battle scars outside. Those people's goal had been to destroy this divine altar. Back in the heaven-suppressing magic sect, Long Chen had destroyed their ancestral statue and their divine pool, causing them to decline. Now, there was no longer a heaven-suppressing magic sect in this world, and there would never be one again. If he hadn't destroyed their ancestral statue or divine pool, then with their foundation and considering that a great era had descended, they would have ended up becoming a behemoth. However, with their divine pool destroyed, their karmic luck had run out. Even their divine item was implicated. Although karmic luck sounded illusory and without substance, it existed. If the original devil race's divine altar was destroyed, the original devil race would also fade away. Yue Xihan and Long Chen walked onto the altar. Divine light flowed here, wrapping around the two of them. They felt like they were being immersed in sunlight. All their pores opened, and they felt relaxed enough to sleep. I can sense you again. Just as Long Chen was feeling relaxed, that ancient and familiar voice rang out in his head. So what if you can feel it? You can't even hear me, and I don't understand what you're saying. Long Chen brushed off this irritating voice. It doesn't matter if you can't understand me. All you need to know is that if you continue like this, you and every person beside you will die to others. Furthermore, their deaths will be very miserable, responded the voice. You can hear me? Don't talk about such meaningless things. Long Chen, although our connection has been sporadic, we have been paying close attention to you from the start. You are too weak. Or perhaps I should say that you are too soft. Even now, you aren't cultivating according to the will of the 9-star hegemon body art. Geniuses are solitary figures. Only mediocre people group together. Do you still not understand the meaning of the hegemon body? Asked that voice rebukingly. Perhaps I really don't know what the true meaning of the hegemon body is. But I am clear about my own goals. If a person abandons the ones they love in order to get stronger, they will lose their future motivation and path. What's the point of being a hegemon if you've lost your path? Long Chen had already stopped caring about this voice. He had lost his initial curiosity a long time ago. In fact, he even felt a bit of disgust toward it. Each time, it only told him to hurry up but never cared about his feelings. Each day, he was fighting on the border of death, and he was under enough pressure. However, this voice kept urging him on, not giving him any useful information. Perhaps. I'm not qualified to criticize the great heir of the 9 stars. However, I have a responsibility to warn you. Your time is running out. Your enemies have passed through the wall of reincarnation, and they are searching for you through all kinds of tiny traces. Once they find you, you and the people beside you, and perhaps everyone on that star, will be annihilated. They will not permit any heir of the 9 stars to exist within the 10 planar worlds, sighed the voice. Long Chen calmly considered this information for a moment. Tell me, who am I? You are you. Then why have I been thrown into this chaotic vortex? Because you are the chosen son of fate. You have no way out. You can only get stronger or die. Furthermore, your life and death relates to the entire 10 planar worlds, to the continuation of millions of stars. As the heir of the 9 stars, you have this heavy burden. Ubus. Just as the voice was still speaking, Long Chen felt a burst of pain in his head. An unfamiliar voice stabbed into his soul like a needle. Hee, I've finally found a 9-star heir. Just wait for your death. The voice's demonic laughter made Long Chen's blood turn ice cold. At the same time, he felt this person leaving behind a mark in his mind sea. Boom. However, the mark had just formed when a cyan light and a black saber light exploded. Evil Moon and the heaven-flipping seal worked together to destroy the mark. Long Chen's body shook. When he opened his eyes, the voices in his head had vanished. His face was a bit pale, but there was a sharp light in his eyes. How dangerous! That person was able to reach you from a whole other world, discarding any spatial restrictions to leave a spiritual mark. Evelmun's voice contained a trace of shock. It had immediately sensed something wrong and worked together with the heaven-flipping seal to erase the spiritual mark, but this had still made it jump. Long Chen, what is it? Asked Yue Xihan. Long Chen should have been bathing in this place's blessing. This place was greatly beneficial to the soul. The environment here was similar to the blessing of the life god tree in the spirit world. However, Long Chen had just closed his eyes for a moment before being startled awake, startling Yue Xihan. "It's nothing." Long Chen told Yue Xihan not to worry, but inside he was shocked and enraged. He was now certain he had been drawn into a terrifying vortex. Clearly, some terrifying expert had managed to eavesdrop on his conversation with that mysterious voice. That expert was also able to leave a mark on his soul from a different world. This kind of technique was something he had never heard of. Long Chen had no idea who those people were, or what they wanted. That made him feel uneasy as well as angry. "Don't worry, although that fellow is so powerful that they are beyond our imagination, the heaven-flipping seal and I destroyed their spiritual mark instantly, so they won't be able to pinpoint your location. However, you also can't be careless. That person was able to leave a spiritual mark on you from an endless distance away, without you even being able to resist. They won't be able to lock onto any of the stars, but they'll be able to narrow it down to one area. It's just that we have no idea how narrow that area is. Either way, you are really pressed for time," said Evil Moon gravely. "How strong do you feel that person is?" asked Long Chen. "I can't tell. Perhaps only sovereigns would be able to block them though," said Evil Moon after a moment's pause. "It couldn't be sure." Long Chen shook his head. Sovereigns were legendary existences on the martial heaven continent. Only 5 had ever appeared in history. Just how powerful had Evil Moon been back then? Despite that, it hadn't been able to even receive a single blow from Sovereign Yunshang and had been forged into a divine weapon. Furthermore, Evil Moon said that sovereigns would only be able to resist, not win. That level of power was enough to cause despair. When the mark on Long Chen's soul was destroyed, he also lost his connection to the mysterious voice. Long Chen guessed that the voice had sensed that it was being watched by someone else, which was how that terrifying expert had found him in the first place. Now that Long Chen had been noticed, that voice probably wouldn't contact him again for fear of implicating him. "Long Chen, that voice is correct. Although I don't understand your cultivation technique, I can sense that you are suppressing it. Like this, you are cultivating in the opposite direction the cultivation technique is trying to go, and you naturally won't be able to cultivate as fast. You need to fully release yourself," said Evil Moon. I know the 9-star Hegemon body art better than you, and I know that I'm suppressing it, which is why my cultivation speed is slower. However, you can't feel just how domineering this technique is. It far surpasses your imagination. If I unleashed it, it would control me, not the other way around. Sooner or later, I would be its slave. I can be domineering, but I have to maintain my rationality. I can kill, but I have to maintain my bottom line. I can be arrogant, but I can't go too far. Even being domineering has to have a limit. If I overdo it, I won't just harm my enemies, but I will also harm my friends and family. My cultivation path will become one where I love only myself, where I only care about myself. That kind of domineeringness is the opposite of my will. The 9-star Hegemon body art's domineering will is one that demands I be the only strong person in this world, that everyone else should kneel down before me, regardless of friend or foe. I can be domineering to my enemies but not my friends. So I need to suppress the 9-star Hegemon body art's influence on me, said Long Chen helplessly. Currently, he was walking on a tightrope. He had to cultivate carefully. He knew how terrifying the 9-star Hegemon body art was. If he cultivated according to its will, he would be unstoppable. However, it was too domineering, to the point that even the master would become a slave to it. Long Chen didn't want to be a combat maniac who forgot about everything else. Then he would lose everything that he loved. No matter how strong a person was, if they didn't have even one person that they cared about, they would just be a terrifying monster. They couldn't be called a real human. Your human race's emotions are really troublesome. In any case, I don't understand them. However, what you're saying seems to have some sense to it. Evil Moon didn't quite understand the emotions Long Chen was talking about, but it acknowledged his logic. After being together for so long, Evil Moon had gone from first snorting derisively at the people Long Chen tried to protect, to feeling something it had never felt before. That feeling was trust. Experts were solitary figures. Long Chen's way of doing things was against this world's normal way. However, the Dragonblood warriors all followed him with unwavering trust. He had united the hearts of over 10,000 people, allowing them to unleash endless power. That had shocked Evil Moon. The dark evil dragon race relied on devouring all life forms to get stronger. They not only had to be on guard against other races, but they also had to be wary against their fellow dragons, even their fathers, mothers, brothers. They all had to be on guard against each other. Since they devoured other races to get stronger, including other powerful enemies, they became strong very quickly. It was precisely because Evil Moon had grown so strong that its confidence had overinflated, and it had decided to challenge a sovereign. The reason why Evil Moon was in its current state was precisely due to its wild arrogance that had swallowed its rationality. If it had been like Long Chen, it wouldn't have ended up like this. So even Evil Moon had to acknowledge Long Chen's words. A person couldn't be too arrogant, or it would be all too easy for sudden calamity to befall them. What you said has given me a clue about another way I can try to cultivate. Long Chen turned toward Yue Xihan and said, Xihan, can I stay here and cultivate for a few days? Of course. But why cultivate here? This place is designed to cleanse the heart and soul. It puts you in a fetus-like state, so how can you cultivate like that? Asked Yue Xihan. This fetus-like state was similar to a deep sleep. In that state, you wouldn't be able to form your own thoughts, let alone cultivate. I have my own plans. I want to use the spiritual blessing of this place to resist the 9-star hegemon body art's influence on me. During this time, Long Chen hadn't been eating medicinal pills to increase his cultivation base, not because he hadn't had time, but because as his cultivation base grew, the power of the 9-star hegemon body art also grew, and its influence over him increased. Right now, the 9-star hegemon body art's influence had reached a grave level. Sometimes, the tiniest provocation would make Long Chen feel an urge to kill. In fact, he even felt a desire to slaughter anyone who went against him, a will to dominate the world alone. That was a frightening desire. If a person was so conceited that they couldn't even see themselves clearly, they would become completely lost. That was the greatest danger. In Long Chen's eyes, those who were devoured by their own power were all idiots. He had encountered many such idiots who thought themselves to be unrivaled, people who thought that the world should bow toward them, people who thought that anyone who went against them was blaspheming them. They both should and would be killed without feeling the slightest feeling of responsibility or guilt. It was precisely because he didn't want to become such a person that Long Chen was resisting the 9-star hegemon body art's influence. If he allowed his cultivation base to rise too quickly, he would be unable to suppress it. However, this place was blessed by the original devil race. It could strengthen his suppression of the 9-star hegemon body art. Yue Xihan didn't ask too many questions since Long Chen was confident. She stood outside to guard him. With Yue Xihan outside, Long Chen took a deep breath. His divine ring appeared behind him, and 5 stars lit up in his eyes. Ripples began to spread through the air. As expected, with the hegemon will suppressed by the blessing here, I can increase my cultivation base. Long Chen nodded. This was the best method to increase his cultivation base right now. He sat down and opened his mouth. The medicinal pills in the primal chaos space began to pour into his mouth like a river. These medicinal pills were the result of Huolong refining day and night. There were giant mountains of them in the primal chaos space. Before this, he hadn't dared to increase his cultivation base too quickly, but now he had no more worries. He activated the devouring ability that Evil Moon had taught him. Boom! A vast aura grew. Long Chen's cultivation base instantly reached the 5th heaven stage of soul transformation. This devouring ability belonged to the dark evil dragon race. It could devour heaven and earth and refine all things. Boom! Another 2 hours passed, and Long Chen's cultivation base advanced once more. That made Yue Xihan jump. This kind of speed was too shocking. Boom! 6 hours, Long Chen advanced once more. The altar space began to twist due to Long Chen's aura. Boom! Every few hours, an explosive sound would ring out. After 2 days, Long Chen opened his eyes. I've finally found a shortcut to cultivating the 9-star hegemon body art, haha. Long Chen laughed, his laughter shaking the sky. His surging aura showed that he had advanced to the 9th heaven stage of soul transformation. Long Chen stood, his aura causing his clothes to billow. His eyes looked like two sharp blades that could pierce through space, so sharp that people wouldn't dare to look at them directly. In the distance, Yue Xihan, who had been protecting him, felt a painful pang in her soul when she looked at him. The current Long Chen was like a sharp sword. He was so sharp that it hurt her. He had changed, becoming even more imposing and domineering, more like a battle god who could look down on all. This is the hegemon side of the 9-star hegemon body art that Long Chen described? Yue Xihan was deeply shaken. She was even a bit afraid. The current Long Chen was so domineering that it blocked out all emotions. He was heartless, a death god looking down on its subjects. Yue Xihan felt that this was no longer the Long Chen she knew. She finally understood why Long Chen did not dare to cultivate the 9-star hegemon body art according to its true essence. This kind of domineeringness was something that didn't allow others to approach him at all. Even from such a distance, she felt like his aura was so sharp that it would slice her as soon as she got closer. This was a merciless and domineering side, one that would annihilate anyone who resisted regardless of their motives. Long Chen calmly sensed the changes in his body. A faint smile appeared on his face. As an ocean's worth of medicinal pills had poured into his stomach, his cultivation base had reached the 9th heaven stage of soul transformation. He had many times more spiritual yuan than before. He had borrowed the blessing of the altar to resist a portion of the 9-star hegemon body art's hegemon will. If he hadn't run out of medicinal pills, he could have advanced another level to the 10th heaven stage. However, the 10th heaven stage would have been his limit for sure. He had to slow down and get used to this level because as his power grew, so did the will of the 9-star hegemon body art. At the 9th heaven stage, he could still control it easily. It wouldn't be a problem. The divine ring appeared behind him again, and 5-colored light lit up the sky. It was even more majestic, stunning, and domineering than before. Ripples began to appear in the air once the divine ring appeared. All the surrounding energy was being forced to worship him. It poured toward him. So I was wrong as to the divine ring's usage before. I don't need the approval of the heavenly Daos to get their energy. The divine ring will force the world to give me its energy. I am the ruler of heaven and earth, and the world must bow to me. If it refuses, then I will destroy and overturn this world. That's the meaning of being a hegemon. It doesn't matter if it's a god or a devil, heaven or earth, they have to submit to me. Follow me and prosper. Defy me and die. Long Chen clenched his fist, feeling the power the divine ring gave him, experiencing that will of forcing everyone else to submit. He finally knew that his previous fighting styles had all been wrong. No wonder the heavens want to destroy me. It doesn't want to submit to me, so it naturally wants to kill me. Now he knew why his luck was so bad, why his tribulations were always full of destruction, thousands and thousands of times more difficult than the tribulations of other cultivators. The heavens didn't want to be destroyed, so they didn't want him to live. His existence threatened the heavens, so the heavens wanted to eliminate him. Just the 9-star hegemon body art is enough to make the heavens terrified. Hence, just how terrifying are the true origins of the 9 stars. Originally, he had been an ant struggling at the bottom level of the secular world. Due to the pill sovereign memories, due to the 9-star hegemon body art, he had walked to his current position. Perhaps I shouldn't complain. Without the 9-star hegemon body art, I'd have long since died a terrible death. My path is still long and covered in mist. Before reaching the end, how can I say whether it's a good thing or not? All I want is to live with a clear conscience. Since I am accompanied by a group of hot-blooded brothers and beauties, I can die without any regrets. So what do I, Long Chen, have to be afraid of? I will not give this life of mine to the heavens, nor will I give it to the 9 stars. My life is mine. A determined light appeared in his eyes. The world wanted to kill him, while the 9-star hegemon body art wanted him to become a merciless hegemon. Neither of those was his choice. Since this was the case, he would control the 9-star hegemon body art, he would control heaven and earth, and he would control his own fate. Long Chen. Suddenly, Yue Xihan let out a soft cry, her eyes full of worry. The current Long Chen made her feel afraid. He seemed strange. I'm fine. Because I increased my cultivation base too quickly, the will of the 9 stars is coming out. I can't restrain it just yet, but it'll be fine in a while. This place is practically perfect for my cultivation. I've already told Hualong to start refining more of the pills. Once I have enough, I can attempt to reach Life Star here, said Long Chen. Yue Xihan was still a bit pale. Long Chen's current aura was difficult to bear. Although the aura of his cultivation base had been retracted, something else was coming from the depths of his soul and he couldn't fully control it. Fortunately, he hadn't had enough pills to advance another level, otherwise, his aura would be even sharper, to the point where Yue Xihan wouldn't be able to bear it. Long Chen did his best to suppress that aura, while Yue Xihan got used to it gradually. The air of the 9 stars really is terrifying. Just this aura is enough to subdue enemies, said Yue Xihan. Great power was always the greatest charisma. This current state of mine isn't a good thing. If I can't control my own aura, it will be a constant strain on my soul. I'll need to spend a few days getting used to my new cultivation base before I can control it perfectly, said Long Chen. You can go into seclusion. Don't worry, I'll guard you, said Yue Xihan. Thank you. Long Chen nodded. He needed to get used to his new cultivation realm. This was definitely not a suitable state to fight in, as he was constantly leaking energy in this state. 3 days later, the raging aura around him began to fade, and after a week, it finally vanished. Long Chen opened his eyes again, but the sharp light within them had been pulled back. It was like a divine sword that had been hidden in a sheath once again. Long Chen looked about the same as before, but now, each of his movements seemed to contain a domineering air to them. This was something that not even Long Chen sensed. Long Chen and Yue Xihan held hands once more as they returned down the path. Yue Xihan was smiling sweetly, a smile that made Long Chen's heart melt. When they passed the statue of the Ancestor, Long Chen cupped his hands again in thanks. He had made great gains here that he hadn't expected. They returned to the battlefield. The spatial cracks were still open, and the original Devil Race's experts were still fighting intensely against the magical beasts. Long Chen suddenly clapped himself on the forehead. I really am dumb. I even forgot something so important. Xiaoqian, here are many rank 9 heavenly Dao fruit. You can distribute them so you can be more confident in the martial heaven continent. Long Chen gave Yue Xihan a spatial ring packed with the heavenly Dao fruits he had gathered. Of course, he kept the Empyrean level ones for himself. The entire Dragonblood Legion had become rank 9 Celestials, so these extra ones were useless to him. Just now, he had been reminded by the sight of the original Devil Race's experts fighting. They hadn't unleashed their manifestations. I don't know how useful these are to you, but they are useless to me in any case. Long Chen smiled. Back then, he had given heavenly Dao fruits to the original Devil Race so their disciples could roam the continent without the worry of exposing their identity. Before having the heavenly Dao fruits, those disciples would only be able to unleash a portion of their combat power without exposing their divine seal, and every bit of energy they used up would be lost until they returned to the skyscraping world since they weren't able to recover their energy in the martial heaven continent. Sometimes, despite being perfectly disguised, disciples of the original Devil Race were forced to allow themselves to be killed just to prevent them from being exposed. With the heavenly Dao fruits, they didn't have to worry about that. They could use the status of Celestials to roam the continent, and they could also fight using the heavenly Dao manifestations. Of course, they're useful. Being Celestials not only allows us to roam the continent, but it also gives us a second kind of energy, making us even a bit stronger than we are in the skyscraping world. Furthermore, they can also upgrade our talent. Heavens, there are so many. Yue Xihan jumped when she saw the mountain of fruit in the spatial ring. This was the result of Long Chen's most recent expeditions. He had fought many large battles in a row and killed many experts. Due to how busy he had been, he had almost forgotten about them. Long Chen, thank you. Yue Xihan hugged Long Chen's neck happily. This gift was truly immense to the original devil race. There were over 100,000 high-level heavenly Dao fruits inside the spatial ring. That was enough to give birth to many geniuses in the original devil race. Don't worry about it. Since our children have to have your surname, why don't we research exactly how we can have a child? Long Chen rubbed Yue Xihan's soft back. He started to get an itching feeling in his pants. That kind of feeling was like a certain area had formed a primal urge. Ah! Yue Xihan suddenly let out a startled cry. They were so close together that she had felt that change. She immediately ran off. Oh, you really are evil. Yue Xihan vanished. Isn't it only a matter of time? This is called planning ahead. Hey, wait for me. I want to check whether Wild has eaten his fill. Long Chen shouted from behind without the slightest shame, looking like he was about to chase after her. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.